Chapter 218. Land of Wind. Located in the desert, the land was barren, and the living environment was extremely harsh. Just like Shinobu's will of fire, the sand also had its own unique will. Under the guidance of the Kazekage, the harsh environment became the spiritual food for the ninjas. The ninjas of the sand had a tenacious and unyielding will. And in the past war with Shinobu, they caused a lot of trouble for Shinobu. In the history of the ninja world, the Sand Hidden Village was also strong for a time. However, after several wars, the Sand Hidden Village was defeated one after another, and many of their elites died. After the Third War, the daimyo of the Land of Wind cut off the funds, and the Sand Hidden Village could only cultivate a small number of elite ninjas, and the strength of the village further regressed. This was the main reason why the Sand Hidden Village participated in Shinobu's plan to collapse. In Hinata's impression, the ninjas of the Sand Hidden Village seemed to be very tough. Gaara, Kankuro Maki, and the others all had cold murderous auras, and their eyes were more ferocious than the last. Even Hanbao's personality was different from Shinobu's soft girl, and she had a bit of a manly style. On the way from Shinobu to the Sand Hidden Village, especially after entering the desert, Hinata felt that the local customs here were completely different from the Land of Fire. After entering the territory of the Wind Country, Hinata also took back her chariot and followed Kakashi with Fujin and Raijin, trekking in the desert with her two short legs. At the border of the Land of Wind, Hinata also met the Shinobu Sato team patrolling the border. However, they didn't have the slightest idea of escorting Hinata's group to the Sand Hidden Village. After sending a ninja eagle to inform the Sand Hidden Village, the Shinobu Sato team allowed Hinata's group to enter. On the way to the Sand Hidden Village, Hinata could feel the Sand Hidden Village's surveillance. Perhaps they were waiting for Hinata's group to make a fool of themselves. It would be best if they had a conflict with the civilians of the Wind Country, and then jump out to solve the problem. And in the process of resolving the issue, the Shinobu Sato might even side with the Shinobu, and then accidentally reveal that Hinata and the other three were Shinobu's emissaries in order to incite the hatred of the Wind Nation's civilians towards the Shinobu. Hinata couldn't help but try to figure out the intentions of the Sand Hidden Village. So hot. Hinata took out a handkerchief to wipe off the sweat on her forehead, her small hands fanning back and forth. The sun in the sky seemed to have come specifically to oppose Hinata. No matter where Hinata walked, the sun seemed to always be hanging above his head. The Wind Country is indeed barren. Hinata sighed. No wonder they want to invade Shinobu. It seems that at the beginning of every ninja war, the Sand Hidden Village was the first to attack Shinobu, and then the Rock Hidden Village would also participate. But this can't be helped. Who told the Wind Country and the Earth Country to be the poorest? Kakashi reminded. Hinata, your mentality is not good for the next task. Hinata looked at Kakashi curiously and asked, Kakashi-sensei, have you never been hostile to the Sand Hidden Village? Speaking of which, when he read the original Naruto in his previous life, Hinata had a good impression of the Sand Hidden Village. Especially after my love became the Kazekage, and later, Sasori appeared, Hinata even had a good feeling about the Sand Hidden Village. However, since Hinata personally experienced the collapse of Shinobu's plan, Hinata no longer had a good impression of the Sand Hidden Village. This may be a matter of position. Kakashi was silent. When it comes to hatred, Kakashi certainly has it. Uchiha-bordered Soil died in the hands of the Rock Hidden Village, and Noira Rin died in the hands of the Mist Hidden Village. His father Shinobu White Fang, and his teacher Namikaze Minato also died young for various reasons. This may be the fate of a ninja. In these decadent years, even if Kakashi still remembered these things in his heart, he had gradually become indifferent to them. Or numb. The dead are gone, but the living still have to live strong. Kakashi asked. I heard from Jiraiya-sama about you and Nine Tails. Why did you forgive Nine Tails? Is it because you haven't experienced it yourself? Hinata was surprised. Lascivious Sage even told you about this? Kakashi explained. Well, although it's different from your dojutsu, someone once used Sharingan to control Nine Tails. Speaking of Nine Tails, Hinata scratched his head. For a while he didn't know how to explain. Although she heard the story of the Kyuubi's attack on Konoha 12 years ago when she was a child, Hinata didn't personally experience that dark period. She also had the thoughts of her previous life, so she didn't have much malice towards the Kyuubi. However, there are some differences between Shinobu and Sand Hideout. The current ninja world can be said to be created by Black Zetsu. Ninjas want peace, but they have to go to war. In this extremely contradictory thinking, Black Zetsu will lead some ninjas to fall into darkness. Hinata now had a first-hand experience of this world. Even Kakashi, who was once a genius ninja, has now become numb. Before he met Naruto, perhaps Kakashi's idea was to eat and wait for death, doing what a ninja should do. When one day he can no longer do it, he will retire from the ninja post and spend his old age in the village. Hinata sometimes feels sorry for Kakashi. The cruelty of the ninja world tortures all ninjas. Hinata looked up at Kakashi and said with a soft smile, "The current Kakashi, sensei, and the first time I saw you, you seem a little different." Kakashi rolled his dead fish eyes and said weakly, "Maybe it's because I see a little hope. Azura's chakra has begun to affect everyone around Naruto. In this world full of hatred and killing, in this world where there is no future and no hope at all, Naruto's appearance is like the only light in the darkness. So everyone is willing to believe in Naruto, and at the same time looking forward to his growth. There are some things, in fact, I know very well in my heart, but it's difficult to really do it." Hinata was a little discouraged. Once the hatred for the sand is established, it's really difficult to change it. Even Hinata, who has a god's perspective, after personally putting himself in Shinobu's position, it's inevitable that he will be hostile to the Sand Village. Not to mention the native ninjas. Kakashi faintly said, "Let's go. When we reach the oasis in front, we will rest for a while." Looking at Hinata, Kakashi chuckled, "Hinata, don't think too much. The ninja world has existed for a long time, and it's not easy to change this world. Even if you can let go of hatred, others may not be able to do it. But if the peace of the ninja world can continue, maybe in your next generation, there won't be so much hatred between the villages." Hinata shook his head slightly and said softly, "I'm just thinking." At the end, Hinata's voice was almost inaudible. The more Hinata knows about ninjas, the more he can feel the sadness of ninjas. So in order to avoid repeating the sadness of ninjas, Hinata decided not to call himself a ninja anymore. "I, Otsutsuki Hinata, am a cultivator." Chapter 219. In the Kazekage building of the Sand-Hidden Village, in a top-secret meeting room. Around the round table sat all the high-level members of the Sand-Hidden Village. Marky, as the confidant of the fourth Kazekage and my love's sensei, was naturally qualified to be here. However, since returning to the Sand-Hidden Village, Marky was relieved of his position as my love's jonin, and my love was assigned to another department. The Jinchuriki of a ninja village can only be in the hands of the Kage. The Kage's method of controlling the Jinchuriki is also extremely dark. The Kage will reveal the identity of the Jinchuriki when the Jinchuriki is small, making the whole village hostile to the Jinchuriki. At the same time, in order to protect the secrets of the Jinchuriki, the Kage will issue a gag order, so that no one can mention anything about the Jinchuriki. When the Jinchuriki faces the exclusion of the whole village, and falls into endless loneliness and pain, the Kage will appear in front of the Jinchuriki with the attitude of a family member, bringing a glimmer of light to the Jinchuriki. The Cloud-Hidden Villages A and B groups were like this, and Shinobu's Naruto and the three generations were also like this. When the fourth Kazekage Raza discovered that my love had established a bond with Yakushimaru, he ordered Yakushimaru to assassinate my love to ensure that my love can only be in the hands of the Kazekage, and use his relationship with my love to continue to control my love. Although the three generations acted like a good person in front of Naruto, in fact he never helped Naruto much in life. Even the inheritance of Minato and Uzumaki Kushina seemed to have been confiscated by Shinobu. Before graduation, Naruto could only drink expired milk, and his body was a few centimeters shorter than Hinata due to malnutrition. Because the more difficult the situation was, the more important Naruto's warmth was to Naruto. Why give so much war compensation to Shinobu? If this money was used to develop the village would recover in a short time. Marky slammed the table and scolded everyone. Even if the negotiations with Shinobu ended a few days ago, Marky still couldn't understand all of this. An elder faintly said, "After the war with Shinobu ended, we received news that the Rock Village was on the border of the Wind Country. Even the Cloud Village was calling for ninjas to return to the village. If we don't ally with Shinobu, the Sand Village will immediately be in danger." Marky, you know what this means. At the beginning of the war, the Sand Village lost the 3 generations Kazekage, but they were still able to fight against Shinobu. After losing to Shinobu, the Sand Village fought against the Mist and the Rock. The 4th Kazekage Raza, in order to fight against the Rock, even sacrificed the elite jonin of the Sand Hideout, Pakura, who had the Scorch release Kekiai Genkai. Raza sent Pakura to the Mist to die, which ended the war between the Sand Hideout and the Mist. The Third Shinobi World War was undoubtedly a shame for the Sand Village. The Sand Village lost one battle after another, and became the weakest village in the Shinobi world. They couldn't even select a qualified Kage. After the collapse of Shinobu's village, the Sand Village had to change from Shinobu's ally to Shinobu's little brother, barely maintaining their influence as one of the 5 great Shinobi villages. Without a Kage, the Sand Village had to rely on the village leaders to make decisions. However, in the Shinobi world, democracy is not a good thing. If everything needs to be discussed, then the opportunity will be fleeting. A middle-aged man said, "Let's not talk about this matter for the time being. What do you think about the students sent to Shinobu?" Marky sneered. "Does our opinion matter? Shinobu sent people to the Sand Village to get the war compensation. Maybe he also wants to observe us." The middle-aged man retorted, "Shinobu has his own attitude, and we also have our own ideas. The Sand Village is our territory, and everything Shinobu's people see is what we want them to see." Learning from Shinobu's talent training system, as well as the medical ninja training system, is something that is beneficial to our Sand Village. This is also the main reason why we compensate Shinobu with a lot of money. Marky sneered. "You're really good at finding excuses for your own incompetence." Someone scolded. "Marky, your attitude is not conducive to the unity between the Sand Hideout and Shinobu. Trust needs to be built step by step. This time we made such a big concession. Shinobu also intends to let us learn from their advanced system. We do this to let the outside world see that our Sand Village and Shinobu are still allies who trust each other. Because only in this way can the Shinobi world maintain the hard-won peace and buy time for our Sand Village to develop." Marky's face was gloomy, so gloomy that it almost dripped water. However, the Sand Hideout's leaders didn't even lift their eyelids. They were expressionless. They didn't put Marky's attitude in their eyes at all. Someone faintly said, "A wrong judgment of the situation will make the village fall into an irrecoverable situation. We have experienced this kind of pain, so, Marky, put down the pride in your heart. What Sand Hideout needs now is not strength, but survival." Marky's face changed several times. After a while, he seemed to have lost all his strength. He sat in his seat without saying a word. Marky is Raza's confidant. He is deeply influenced by Raza. It is undeniable that Raza loves his village very much. In order to protect Sand Hideout, he didn't hesitate to let his son become a Jinchuriki. But for the Sand Village to be what it is today, Raza also has an unshirkable responsibility. Someone said, "Shinobu's messenger is coming. Marky, you are familiar with them. You are responsible for leading Kankuro and Hanbao to greet them. You are also a veteran jonin of the village. You should know what to do." Marky said with a blank expression. "I know." An old man suddenly suggested, "Since the village is in a difficult situation, why don't we ask those two to come out and preside over the overall situation?" There was a moment of silence in the meeting room, and a slightly younger person said, "Elder Chio and Elder Hai have not been involved in the affairs of the village for many years. The current situation of the village is not the most dangerous time. It is better for us to deal with it ourselves. We can't trouble the elders of the village for everything, right? In that case, wouldn't it seem that we, the younger generation, have accomplished nothing?" Marky has already seen through these so-called elders. They are just doing it for their own interests. Anyway, the ninja world is still peaceful, and the Sand Village doesn't need a Kage to lead them. Marky has secretly made up his mind. After Shinobu's people leave, he will ask Chio and Elder Hai to come out and preside over the overall situation of the Sand Village. In any case, at least the fifth Kazekage must be elected and let him lead the village to continue its development. Nowadays, the discussion and decision-making seem to be democratic, but because of the different interests of the parties, few people can think from the perspective of the village. Position determines the thinking. These people are not Kazekage. All their decisions are based on their own interests. Just like the war compensation given to Shinobu. Although Marky doesn't know how much money the daimyo of the Land of Wind took out, in addition to compensating Shinobu's losses, most of it was used for the development of the sand village itself. But this money may have been divided equally by these people in front of him. Chapter 220. In a small town closest to the sand-hidden village, Hinata and Kakashi stayed in a hotel and didn't go out of the door. Kakashi decided to rest here for the night and wait until the next morning to go to the sand-hidden village. The reason why they stayed in the hotel and didn't go out was because both Hinata and Kakashi were wearing Konoha's ninja headband. The civilians of the Land of Wind didn't have a good impression of Konoha's ninja. Hinata and Kakashi went all the way to the town and encountered cold eyes and rejection. Even the hotel owner made things difficult for them. Kakashi also asked Hinata to be patient because once there was a conflict with the civilians, it would have a great impact on Shinobu's reputation. The Thunder God and the Wind God were sent to another room. Kakashi sat on the windowsill reading a book, still the same, Intimate Paradise. He didn't know how many books Jiraiya wrote. Kakashi probably read it over and over again. He was tired of reading stories. What Kakashi really wanted to read was the beliefs and ideas described in Jiraiya's book. After the death of Minato, perhaps Jiraiya's book has been guiding Kakashi's life path. Hinata came to Kakashi to play, but Kakashi has been ignoring him, so Hinata could only lie on the bed and roll around. Kakashi-sensei, do you think the sand-hidden village will send someone to pick us up tomorrow? Kakashi said indifferently, they should. Hinata muttered. But the sand-hidden village's attitude is obviously to show us their strength. What are we going to do tomorrow? Kakashi put Intimate Paradise back in his bag. He felt that he must change Hinata's mind. Otherwise, some irreversible changes may happen tomorrow. Although Naruto is not around, the sand-hidden village still has the Ichibi. In case Hinata can't help but contact the Ichibi and let him appear in the sand-hidden village. Kakashi didn't dare to think about it. Hinata, I know that there is still hatred between Shinobu and Sand Hideout, but if you want to change the relationship between the two villages, you must start with us. We are Shinobu's messengers. If we are hostile to the sand, then the relationship between Shinobu and Sand Hideout will get worse and worse. Hinata was lying on the bed, his hands holding his chin, his legs kicking. He was bored to death. Seeing that Kakashi finally responded to him, Hinata showed dissatisfaction. But we are Shinobu's messengers, we represent Naruto, Sama. The sand-hidden village doesn't say that they will welcome us at the border, but at least they will receive us along the way, and eat and live free of charge. Kakashi covered his forehead. So in the end, you still think that the price of the Land of Wind is too high? Although the country of Wind was the largest among the 5 countries, the majority of its land was desert or the Gobi Desert without any signs of human habitation. In fact, there is not much land in the Land of Wind that can support human survival. Therefore, a large number of materials in the Land of Wind must be imported from abroad, which directly leads to the high price of the Land of Wind. The fruits that can be picked everywhere in the mountains of Shinobu are more expensive than meat in the Land of Wind, especially seafood. It's almost impossible to eat seafood in the Land of Wind. The grilled squid that can be seen everywhere in the streets of Shinobu is a high-end food that only the rich can eat in the Land of Wind. Although the Land of Wind has the unique flavor of the desert, especially in the evening, when the afterglow of the setting sun shines on the small town made of yellow soil, it's like a picturesque scenery from a distance. But if you really want to live here, you have to bear too many difficulties. With a slight sigh, Kakashi changed the topic. Hinata, our mission this time is to represent Shinobu to the sand-hidden village to re-establish the friendship between the two major villages. But you have to know that those hostile villages who want to destroy the relationship between Shinobu and Sand Hideout will definitely take action. The war between Shinobu and Sand Hideout has just ended, And now the trust between the two villages is at its weakest. There is also hostility between Shinobu and Shinobu Sato. So don't think that we're here to play. The reason why those people haven't taken action yet is probably because of the war compensation. Hinata sat up from the bed and exclaimed, Kakashi-sensei, why didn't you mention such a dangerous thing until now? In the end, Hinata looked at Kakashi with a trace of complaint in her eyes. Kakashi-sensei, your conscience is really bad. Aha, at such a dangerous time, you still have the mood to peek at porn. Kakashi said lightly. Don't act like a spoiled child. You should think of this kind of thing yourself, not rely on me to remind you. In the ninja world, it's not only Shinobu's hostile villages that are eyeing this money, perhaps there are also organizations. So our task is great. Not only do we have to bring the war compensation back to Shinobu, but we also have to bring the study group of the Sand Village safely back to Shinobu. Hinata asked tentatively. Then when we go back, will the Sand Village send someone to escort us to the border? Kakashi thought for a while and said lightly. That depends on how important the study group we choose is. Maybe the Sand Village will also send someone to rob the money on the way. If even the Sand Hideouts people die, then Shinobu won't suspect the Sand Village. Hinata thought about it seriously. In the end, he found that there was nothing he could do. If the Sand Hideout really wants to rob the money on the way, Hinata and the others won't be able to avoid the Sand Hideout's attack. What's more, there are other ninja villages eyeing this money. Hinata and Kakashi have already set off from Shinobu for several days. Even if this matter was confidential at the beginning, by now, it's estimated that the people who should know about it already know. Especially when Kakashi mentioned the organizations. Organizations want to collect money for Nansan, but the person who worries Hinata more is Black Zetsu. Hinata and Kakashi are acting together this time. Black Zetsu will definitely not let go of this opportunity. Black Zetsu's last plan in the water country failed because he underestimated Hinata's strength. If he still acts, he will definitely use the power of organizations. And this war compensation may be the best excuse. Seeing Hinata's nervous face, Kakashi comforted him. But you don't have to worry too much. Your strength is no longer a secret in the ninja world. If you and I join forces, the major ninja villages will have to send a team of Jonin-level ninjas. But in order to hide their identity, the major ninja villages can't send a large team. If they think about it carefully, maybe they will give up the plan, Hinata said with a dignified face. I'm worried about the organizations. After the secret investigation of the Hyuga family, the last incident in the water country should be the work of the organizations. I'm being watched by them. Kakashi's expression changed when he heard this. He has already noticed that the incident in the water country was unusual, and he originally thought that it was Danzo's doing. But if it's the organizations... Chapter 221. Hataki Kakashi Hinata. We meet again. Early the next morning, Hinata, Kakashi, Kazekage, and Thunder God had just finished their breakfast when they saw Marky, Kankuro, and Hanbao at the entrance of the hotel. Marky's face didn't show the slightest emotion. Even if he was hostile to Shinobu, he wouldn't show it in this kind of situation. However, his eyes revealed a lot of things. I am Jonin Marky of the Sand Hideout, on behalf of the village to welcome you. Shinobu's messenger. Kakashi stepped forward and said, I am Shinobu's Jonin Kakashi. Hinata stood beside Kakashi with a serious expression, no longer treating this as a trip. After the conversation with Kakashi last night, Hinata was completely vigilant. Although this trip to the Sand Village is confidential, the major ninja villages have received some information, and the organizations have White Zetsu to inquire for them. Although Hinata doesn't know the specific amount of the war compensation, since it's a transaction between the ninja villages, it's definitely not a small number. There must be a lot of people eyeing this money. Kakashi was a famous cloning ninja in the shinobi world, and Hinata had experienced several battles, and had already leaked information about him. This means that once the enemy starts to act, their deployment will be targeted at Hinata and Kakashi. Marky nodded and said lightly, the village's leaders are already waiting for you, come with me. Kakashi and Hinata looked at each other, then followed Marky and the other two and ran in the direction of the Sand Village. At least during this time, the safety of Hinata and the others can be guaranteed. Kakashi and Marky didn't have the desire to talk, although Hinata and Kakashi escorted them back to the Land of Wind not long ago. The one who held them captive is also Kakashi's follower, Hinata. The sand village is surrounded by high rock walls, and outsiders can't see anything in the village. The only way out of the village is through the canyon called a Line Sky, by Shinobu Sato. Shinobu Sato stood guard on the rock walls to monitor everything around the village. Unless there's a mole, no one can enter the sand village quietly. After Marky and the guard verified their identities, Hinata and the others entered the sand village. The buildings were full of desert-style, dry and clean alleys. If this wasn't a ninja village, it would be quite poetic. The people of the sand village, regardless of men or women, like to wear headscarves, veils and coarse slim-fit robes, looking quite mysterious. As soon as Hinata and Kakashi entered the sand village, the ninjas and civilians in the village turned their eyes to them. Different from the people of the sand village, the temperament is completely different from the people here. Coupled with the logo on the forehead protector, Shinobu's identity is almost impossible to guess. Hinata can probably understand how Naruto felt when he was excluded by the villagers when he was a child. Because Hinata was facing that kind of hostility, hatred, and disgust at the moment. The people of the sand village seemed to be too lazy to hide their emotions, and all the hostility towards Shinobu was clearly shown on their faces. Marky's face was cloudy. Hanbao walked to Hinata and whispered, "I'm sorry." Hinata nodded slightly and followed Kakashi without saying a word, walking towards the Kazekage building. In this case, even if Hinata has been educated in noble etiquette since childhood, before entering the sand village, he kept reminding himself that he must be calm. But after entering the sand village, Hinata couldn't help but feel a little angry. This kind of anger is probably the kind of anger that can't wait to argue with people, or directly use force. After all, in Hinata's view, the sand village's current predicament is their own fault. Kakashi slowed down his pace slightly, looked at Hinata, and whispered, "The other purpose of the 5th Hokage's sending you to the sand village is to hope that you can restrain yourself and stay calm under the watchful eyes of the wolves. This is also a kind of training." Hinata nodded and whispered, "You are right. In fact, as long as I adjust my mentality, it will be fine. Weakness is the original sin, and the winner doesn't accept the blame. The attitude of the sand village is not so much hostility towards us. It is better to say that they are showing their incompetence in front of us. If they were strong enough, they wouldn't have to suffer this kind of pain." Hinata's voice was very low. The people around him may not be able to hear it, but Marky, Kankuro, and Hanbao heard it clearly. Marky's face was gloomy, and Hanbao also looked at Hinata with a reproachful look. Hinata chuckled. "What, am I wrong? Look at the expressions of these people. It's not us who are losing face. At least when you were in Shinobu, our people didn't look at you like this. It seems that the discipline of your sand hideout is much worse than our Shinobu." Marky quickened his pace and walked quickly towards the Kazekage Tower. Hinata is right. The main reason why the sand village is so hostile towards Shinobu is because they are weak, and because they lost the war. If they won against Shinobu's plan, then the attitude of the Shinobu ninjas at this moment may be singing and dancing, laughing at how the Shinobu will lose face. Kakashi shook his head slightly. Hinata's words were actually just a thought in his heart. There was no need to say it out loud. However, sometimes a proper counterattack can make the opponent restrain a little. Hinata and the others walked all the way from the entrance of the village, except for Hanbao whispering sorry. Marky didn't show any attitude, as if he turned a blind eye to the hostility of the sand village. Although this kind of hostility is inevitable, if the sand village really wants to reconcile with Shinobu, they should at least order the villagers to restrain themselves a little. Kazekage Tower. Marky took Hinata, Kakashi, and the others to the door of a conference room and said, "The village's leaders are already waiting for you inside." Kakashi nodded slightly and said, "Yes." Hinata looked at the thunder god and the wind god with some embarrassment and said to Hanbao, "I'll have to trouble you to arrange them. It's best to prepare some food for them." Hanbao nodded. "Yes. Leave it to me." Marky opened the door of the conference room and said lightly, "Everyone from Shinobu, please come in." Hinata and Kakashi walked into the conference room. and the leaders of Sand Hideout in the conference room also looked at the door. The conference room was very empty. There was a huge round table in the middle, and there were statues of the Kazekage in the corner. Although the colors were monotonous, there was a solemn atmosphere. An old man turned his eyes to Hinata and said lightly, "This is a high-level meeting between our Sand Hideout and Shinobu, this little girl. I'm afraid it's not suitable for her to participate." Kakashi slightly turned his head and said indifferently, "She is Hinata Naruto, Sama's secretary. Everything that I discuss with you will be recorded by her and reported to the 5th Naruto, Sama." Hinata took a step forward and said jokingly, "Speaking of which, there seems to be a lot of leaders in your Sand Hideout village." Chapter 222. There are a lot of people in the Sand Hideout village? Everyone in the Sand Village looked at each other. They didn't know what Hinata was trying to say. Marky asked, "Is there a problem?" "It's nothing," Hinata chuckled. "But I probably already know why you haven't chosen the 5th Kazekage after so long." Marky's face turned extremely ugly in an instant. All the people in the Sand Hideout were also embarrassed. They looked at Hinata with gloomy eyes. Even if there are some things that aren't explicitly stated, everyone will tacitly abide by them. This is the so-called unspoken rule. When it was first discovered that the 4th Kazekage died at the hands of Orochimaru, it caused a panic in the Sand Village. Especially when they received the information that the Cloud and the Rock were ready for war. This panic reached its peak. But soon, they had different opinions about this matter. The 4th Kazekage was found dead after Shinobu's plan to collapse the Sand Village. After the end of the war, Konoha's top leaders and Sand Village's top leaders also began tentative contact and launched a series of negotiations. When Shinobu and the Sand Hideout intended to form an alliance again, many people in the Sand Hideout village suddenly realized that it was a good thing that there was no Kage in the village. Especially when Shinobu and the Sand Hideout formed an alliance again. The Rock and the Cloud were relieved of their vigilance, and the ninja world seemed to have returned to its previous balance. Shinobu wanted to restore their strength, and the Sand also wanted to restore their strength. And restoring their strength required a lot of funds. When the daimyo of the Wind Country saw that the Sand was defeated by Shinobu, he also seemed to consider the country's security. Even if the country's finances were tight, the daimyo of the Wind Country still allocated a huge amount of funds to the Sand Village. In addition to compensating Shinobu, this money was used to restore the Sand Village's strength. There was no Kazekage in the Sand Hideout, so the money needed to be allocated by the Sand Hideout. What did he mean by recovering his vitality? For the ninja village, recovering its vitality means training a large number of new ninjas. It's impossible for the Sand Hidden Village not to choose Kazekage, and many people knew this. But the time of the Kazekage selection can be postponed indefinitely. Without the Kazekage presiding over the village affairs, the higher-ups of the Sand Hideout can use the funds to buy ninjas, train confidants, and expand their own forces. When my love was first in power, Kage's power had almost been taken away by these so-called high-level officials. In the original work, when Deidara caught Kazekage alive in the Sand Hidden Village, only Kankuro ran out to chase after him. The rest of the villagers stayed put on the pretext of protecting the safety of the village. Marky and the others had no choice but to seek help from Shinobu. The beginning of the Third Shinobi World War was because of the inexplicable disappearance of the Kazekage of the 3 generations. The Sand Hidden Village, who once dared to start a Shinobi World War for the sake of the Kazekage, could now watch as the Kazekage was caught alive in the village without even pursuing him. Hinata dared to say such provocative words because Hinata clearly recognized the extent of corruption in the Sand Hidden Village. It's worse than Shinobu. Even if Hinata said such words, they didn't dare to say anything. Although the 2 Naruto advisors of Shinobu were fence-sitters, after the death of the 3 generations, they at least knew that the village must immediately elect the 5th Naruto, instead of delaying it like the Sand Hidden Village. Hinata suddenly felt that Juan Xiaochun and Mito Monitis were quite cute. In the absence of Naruto, the Naruto advisors had the right to preside over the village affairs. But at that moment, they were wholeheartedly thinking about the village. Even if they were greedy for power, They would only do so after the situation in the village stabilized. Hinata had a gentle smile on her face, holding a black notebook in her arms, and with every move she made, she regained the elegance of the Hyuga family's eldest daughter. Gentlemen of Sand Hideout, can we enter the negotiation stage? Ahem. An old man coughed and said lightly, Gentlemen of Shinobu, please sit down. After Hinata and Kakashi sat down, the old man continued. We already know the purpose of your visit. We have already made a decision with the higher-ups of Shinobu about the compensation. You can count the specific amount. After that, the old man handed a bank book to Kakashi. There are also banks in the ninja world, but the banking business is mainly managed by the officials of each country. It has nothing to do with the ninja village. Hinata took out a pen and prepared to record the content of the meeting. Kakashi opened the bank book to check the amount. Hinata couldn't help but take a peek. Fuck. Hinata's small hand trembled and almost scratched the notebook. Let me count, how many zeros are there? Hinata has never seen so much money in her 2 lifetimes. Jiraiya's life savings compared to this amount of money is not even a fraction. Kakashi closed the bank book, checked the authenticity of the bank book, and then said lightly, the number is correct. After that, Kakashi handed the bank book to Hinata. Hinata's small eyes looked around, and silently calculated in her heart, if she kills and escapes now, how much chance does she have to escape from the sand-hidden village alive? Huff. Huff. Suppressing the greed in her heart, Hinata opened the bank book and took a look. After confirming the amount, she carefully put the bank book in her ninja bag. Although Hinata's ninja level is not as high as Kakashi's, after all, Hinata is Tsunade's secretary, and is qualified to temporarily keep the money. Moreover, Hinata's strength is stronger than Kakashi's, so it is safer to leave the bank book with Hinata. The old man of the sand hideout continued. Since the amount of compensation is correct, then the next thing is to determine the students to be sent to Shinobu. We have communicated with Naruto, Sama before, and the sand hideout can send a total of 3 teams of 12 people. Is there any problem? Kakashi nodded. The old man said, we have selected suitable candidates, and they are all the elite talents of the village. The 2 from Shinobu can rest in the sand-hidden village for 1 night. But to avoid any problems, you should leave early tomorrow morning. Kakashi and Hinata looked at each other, and finally, Hinata said, the sand-hidden village wants to learn from Shinobu's advanced talent training system, as well as the medical ninja training system. But whether it is a medical ninja or a school teacher, we need professional talents. Before I came to the sand-hidden village, Naruto, Sama has already told me how to select suitable talents. If the selection is not suitable, I'm afraid we won't be able to learn much, right? The sand hideout's leaders looked at each other and thought about how to refute Hinata's words. On the one hand, the students sent to Shinobu are to show the relationship between Shinobu and the sand hideout to the outside world. And on the other hand, the sand hideout really wants to learn from Shinobu's advanced system. After all, Shinobu has the title of Cradle of Geniuses. Of course, Shinobu can't teach the sand hideout's real secrets, but the selection of the students, especially the selection of the teachers, is actually very important. At least, Shinobu can influence the future generations of the sand-hidden village by influencing the teachers. Chapter 223. It was also the first time that Hinata witnessed such a high-level negotiation. After Hinata expressed Tsunade's intention, Kakashi and the sand hideout's high-level officials began a fierce debate. Hinata didn't know how the sand hideout arranged the students, but Shinobu must select Shinobu who are not hostile to Shinobu to study in Shinobu. They will even receive some preferential treatment in Shinobu. Sand hideout may pay more attention to the study of the medical system, but what Shinobu really cares about is the cultivation of talents. If the situation permits, Shinobu may even use genjutsu to brainwash Shinobu Sato. As long as Shinobu can arrange a Shinobu sensei in the Shinobu's ninja school, Shinobu's plan will be successful. Even if it's not a sensei, it must be an important person in the sand village. Tsunade is actually interested in my love trio, but my love is a Jinchuriki, so she can't go to Shinobu. But Hanbao and Kenkuro must be among the students this time, because the 2 of them can influence my love. At noon, The Sand Village also arranged for Hinata and Kakashi to meet with a group of Shinobu Sato. They talked from morning to evening, and Kakashi and the Sand Hideout's high-level officials confirmed the students sent to Shinobu. Kankuro and Handbao were very conspicuous among a group of side ninjas. At night, after dinner, Hinata sneaked out of the window and secretly came to Kakashi's room. "Kakashi-sensei, are we leaving the Sand Village early tomorrow morning?" Kakashi put Intimate Paradise back into the ninja tool bag and nodded. We'll be leaving tomorrow morning. What do you think?" Hinata casually laid down on the bed and shamelessly said, "I was the one who wanted to ask you. You are the famous teacher Kakashi." Kakashi crossed his arms and said softly, "Although these are all our speculations, we have to be careful. The Sand Hidden Village will send people to escort us to the border of the Land of Wind, and Naruto-sama will also send people to meet us at the border of the Land of Fire. So the time in the Land of River will be the most dangerous time for us. Battles between big countries would always be fought within the borders of small countries. This was already the most basic unspoken rule. If the Cloud and the Rock take action, they will do it in the Land of River." Hinata was puzzled. Such an important mission, and it involves so much money. Why didn't Naruto-sama send the Anbu into the country of River to meet us? Kakashi explained, "We are still free, and we can choose the way back. But once we determine the way back with Naruto-sama, the probability of being ambushed will greatly increase. Even if Naruto-sama sends the Anbu to meet us, it will still be the same." Hinata thought for a moment and nodded slightly. This was something that Hinata didn't think of before. "Forget it. Let's not think too much. We'll deal with whatever comes our way. There's nothing to be afraid of." Kakashi chuckled. "Although the idea is right, we still need to be vigilant and have countermeasures. We will go with the Sand Hidden Village tomorrow. The enemy may monitor us near the Sand Hidden Village. If the enemy is Cloud or Rock Hidden Village, it will be fine, but if it is Akatsuki," Kakashi said with some worry, "since you have been targeted by Akatsuki, it is useless to split up. We must gather all the forces to deal with the possible enemies." Kakashi was also helpless. Although the person targeted by the organizations was Hinata, the other party didn't seem to have the intention to kill Hinata, but they wanted to lure Hinata into the darkness. In fact, when this was known by Hinata, the organization's conspiracy could no longer be realized. Black Zetsu's conspiracy could only succeed if Hinata didn't know about it. If Hinata knew about it, then Hinata would be mentally prepared. The key is that Black Zetsu didn't know about Hinata's thoughts. Hinata also didn't know what Black Zetsu's next step would be. So what Hinata can do now is to try his best to protect the safety of the people around him before meeting Black Zetsu. "Well, I know, then I will go back to sleep first. Good night, Kakashi-sensei." "Good night." Outside the Sand Hidden Village, half of Zetsu's body slowly emerged from the desert. Although Black Zetsu didn't know about Hinata's thoughts at the moment, he actually gave up his original plan and no longer targeted Kakashi. The Water Country incident made all sides on guard, and maybe Shinobu has found some clues. If Black Zetsu continues to act, it is very likely that he will expose himself. What's more, if he doesn't use the power of the organizations, Black Zetsu has no other means to use. However, although Black Zetsu gave up his plan to target Hinata, Nagato was eyeing the Sand Hidden Village's war compensation. Black Zetsu deliberately stopped Nagato. The organizations now need to be low-key. If they openly rob Shinobu and Sand Hideout's money, the Akatsuki will be targeted by the whole ninja world. But Nagato also has his own reasons. As long as things are done neatly, no one will find out that it was the organizations who did it. Nansen needs to be prodigal, cough. The organizations now need a lot of money, and if they only rely on missions, the return is too low. But if they get the war compensation, the organizations won't have to worry about money anymore. White Zetsu faintly said, "What do we do now? The Akatsuki has already started to act. The replacement you prepared won't be killed, right?" White Zetsu was a little worried about Hinata's safety. In order to ensure that this operation can be foolproof, Nagato sent 2 teams to perform the mission. When Itachi Uchiha and dried persimmon mackerel went to Shinobu to inquire about information, Hinata's performance was too conspicuous. Nagato also overestimated Hinata's strength as much as possible, and sent an absolutely foolproof combination. Seeing Black Zetsu didn't speak, White Zetsu continued. Should we give them the wrong information? No, Black Zetsu said in a deep voice. In that way, our purpose will be exposed, and the bordered soil will be suspicious. White Zetsu said with a playful tone. If Hinata is killed, your replacement will be gone. If Kakashi is killed, Hinata will only be hostile to the organizations, and your plan will also fail. Black Zetsu said lightly. After all, Hyuga and Uchiha are different. Byakugan is the mother's eyes. It is the most perfect eye. Sharingan can be said to be the power of the God Tree, and the incarnation of the God Tree. The Jubi itself is a creature with destructive emotions. Sharingan needs extreme emotional stimulation to open and evolve, and the eye power of the Sharingan naturally affects the spiritual will of the ninja. But Byakugan is different. The Hyuga clan is not so easy to lure. Black Zetsu thought for a moment and slowly said. Since we can't stop it, then we have to wait and see. But we must save Hinata at the last moment, and then let the bordered soil use that technique on her. White Zetsu wondered. Are you sure that technique will work? Black Zetsu said lightly. If she is seriously injured, you stay and continue to monitor. I will go find the bordered soil. If we want to save her, we can't do it alone. Chapter 224. Ring, ring, ring. The alarm kept ringing, and Hinata stretched out a hand from under the quilt, turned off the alarm switch with a bang, and went back to sleep in a daze. Sleepiness hit him. Half asleep, Hinata suddenly remembered that he was still in the sand village. Ah! With a yawn, Hinata stubbornly got out of the bed, scratched his head and stretched his body. Comfortable. Hinata still cares about his face. In the past, he was lazy in Shinobu, but now that he's in another village, Hinata doesn't want to be mistaken as a lazy person. Get up, wash up, and eat. Kakashi also got up very early today, and he will be returning to Shinobu soon. He doesn't want the title of Late King to spread in the sand village. The two people packed their bags, and at 8 o'clock in the morning, a group of 4 people under the leadership of Marky arrived at the sand village's one-line sky. Shinobu has 4 people and the sand village's study group has 12 people, plus the 4 jonins escorting them. A group of 20 people set off from the sand village and ran towards the land of river. Marky was also in the escort team. Towards the evening, Marky came to Kakashi's side and said faintly, in front of us is the last town on the border of the land of wind. We will rest in the town for the night, and wait until tomorrow morning. We will escort you to the border of the land of wind. Kakashi nodded slightly. The sand village originally wanted to escort Hinata and the others to the border of the land of fire, but Kakashi proposed that they don't need Shinobu Sato's escort. Marky looked at Kakashi and frowned. Although I don't know what you're thinking, the people in the village have already sent a message to Shinobu through the Ninja Eagle. This means that if you have trouble in the land of river, it has nothing to do with us. Marky wasn't a completely unreasonable person. Although he was hostile to Shinobu, he also knew that the sand village can only survive this difficult period if they become allies with Shinobu. What really made Marky feel disgusted was that the sand village's leaders gave Shinobu so much compensation. Originally, the sand village didn't need to compensate so much. As long as the leaders were willing to ask Chio and Ebizo to come out and preside over the situation, and quickly elect the 5th Kazekage, even if it's just a substitute Kazekage, the sand village would have enough confidence to refuse Shinobu. The power struggle within the village, and the compromise between the higher-ups was the root cause of the hidden sand village's decline. The voices of the sand village couldn't be unified, and the leaders were fighting for power. They didn't want to lose their own strength. Not to mention a war, even if it's a slightly dangerous task, the leaders would push the responsibility to each other, and hope that the other side would carry it out. How could the sand village have the courage to refuse Shinobu? Kakashi was silent for a moment and suddenly said, although our purpose is to go to Shinobu, our mission is different from yours. Our mission is to escort the war compensation, and your mission is to go to Shinobu to learn about the advanced system and improve the friendship between Shinobu and Sand Hideout. In that case, we can split up with Sand Hideout and Shinobu. Marky looked at Kakashi strangely and asked, "Are you serious?" Kakashi faintly said, "If there is danger ahead, this is the only way to minimize the casualties." Marky looked deeply at Kakashi and said with slight admiration, "You Shinobu ninjas are really interesting." Shinobu and Sand Hideout splitting up means that the danger of Sand Hideout's study group will be minimized. If there is an ambush in the land of sand, then their purpose must be the war compensation, not to ambush Sand Hideout's study group. Kakashi's proposal to split up not only reduces the danger of the study group, but also puts himself in danger. Although Kakashi refused the Sand's escort, Marky will definitely secretly protect Hanbao and Kankuro. Splitting up means that Shinobu's group will no longer have the support of the Sand Village. Hinata looked at Kakashi with some doubts. Kakashi ignored Hinata and continued to say to Marky, "If you don't have any objections, then we will split up here." After saying that, Kakashi called Hinata and said faintly, "Hinata, let's go." Hinata waved his hand and signaled the Thunder God and the Wind God to follow. After leaving Sand Hideout's group, Hinata finally couldn't help but ask, "Kakashi-sensei, didn't you say last night that we won't split up? And if we act together with the Sand Village's people, once we encounter the enemy, we can use them as cannon fodder?" Kakashi rolled his dead fish eyes and weakly explained, "What you said is right. Even if the Sand Hideout study group is all dead, they can continue to send people to study with Shinobu. And if we act together with the Sand Hideout's group, the Sand Village may send people to secretly protect us. That's what I originally thought. But, do you know why I suddenly proposed to split up?" Hinata curiously asked, "Why?" Kakashi faintly said, "Because someone in the Sand Hideout's group betrayed our information. That person is one of the 4 jonins of the Sand Hideout's escort team. I asked Parker to take a stroll around the Sand Hidden Village last night, and accidentally saw this scene." After a pause, Kakashi mysteriously said, "The enemy's spy is now being monitored by Marky. He can no longer pass information to the outside. That is to say, the enemy can only know our whereabouts through the spy." Hinata instantly understood Kakashi's meaning and glanced at Kakashi and couldn't help but complain, "Kakashi-sensei, you are so bad." Kakashi originally only asked Marky and the others to escort them to the border of the Land of Wind, but now that Shinobu and Sand Hideout have split up, Marky will definitely escort Hanbao and Kankuro safely to the border of the Land of Fire. The enemy may have used some kind of technique to grasp the whereabouts of the Sand Hideout spy, and then through the Sand Hideout spy's whereabouts, they can grasp the whereabouts of Hinata and the others. But now that both sides have split up, the Sand Hideout spy can no longer pass information to the outside under the watchful eyes of the public. Kakashi faintly said, "If the enemy's goal is the war compensation, they won't ambush the Sand Village and do something stupid like exposing their whereabouts. But I'm only considering one possibility. If the enemy has other means to monitor us, then splitting up will make us lose the support of the Sand Hideout." Byakugan. Hinata activated Byakugan and looked around. Even the small animals in the cracks of the stones were not spared. There is no chakra reaction. However, considering that some monitoring methods can be hidden from Byakugan, Hinata used natural perception again but still found nothing. Hinata was still a little worried. In fact, in addition to Byakugan and natural perception, Hinata has a third perception ability, good and evil perception. The power that Nine Tails passed to Hinata was not a huge chakra, but a seed that represented the power of Nine Tails. The power of the seed was very weak, and it only contained a little bit of the power of Nine Tails. But the power of the seed didn't disappear after it was used up. It was the kind of power that could be infinitely regenerated. Considering the ability of White Zetsu, Hinata used the power of Nine Tails for the first time, and tried to use good and evil perception to perceive the surrounding situation again. Chapter 225. White Zetsu had an ability called Mayfly Technique, which allowed him to integrate his body with the earth, grass and trees, reaching the realm of Earth is my body. Through the Mayfly Technique, White Zetsu could move underground at high speed, and during the ninjutsu he could cut off all auras. Since they were integrated, Byakugan certainly couldn't find White Zetsu who was integrated with the earth. Even if Hinata's eyes were strong, as long as White Zetsu was a little far away, it would be difficult for Hinata to find White Zetsu's whereabouts. In the original work, Byakugan could even detect Danzo secretly using Kodo Amatsukami, but he didn't react at all to White Zetsu's approach. Although the ability of natural perception was strong, if there was no aura, natural energy couldn't capture the other party's whereabouts. But good and evil perception was different. As long as the other party had malice, even if it was only for a moment, this kind of perception could clearly capture the malice in the other party's heart. This was another kind of perception ability in addition to visual perception and energy perception, psychic perception. Hinata had very little Nine-Tails power in his body, but in just a few seconds of perception, Hinata found something unusual. The people of the Sand Hidden Village also had malice in their hearts, but there was a malice hidden a kilometer away from Hinata. Very close. But Hinata didn't even feel a trace of it before. Hinata suddenly turned his head, and in the vision of Byakugan, there was only soil in that direction. Sure enough, it was White Zetsu. Hinata had cold sweat on his back. In the past, Hinata was very confident in his Byakugan, thinking that even White Zetsu couldn't escape his perception. But this time, reality taught Hinata a profound lesson. Hinata didn't know how many times he was followed by White Zetsu when he went out to perform missions in the past, and how much information White Zetsu had about him. Did Black Zetsu, who was attached to White Zetsu, already know something, so he has been targeting him? Hinata, what did you find? Kakashi looked at Hinata in confusion. Hinata whispered, "Come with me." After that, Hinata ran quickly towards the place where White Zetsu was hiding. White. Was I discovered? I was a little confused. Ninjas are all confident, and many ninjas actually died because of their own self-confidence. White Zetsu had absolute confidence in his own abilities. Ever since Madara created White Zetsu from the Ghetto Mazo, no one has ever found its whereabouts. Although Black Zetsu judged that Hinata's Byakugan level was extremely high, White Zetsu was never discovered by Hinata. So this time, how did Hinata find Zetsu? But Zetsu didn't have time to think about this. He didn't have the ability to fight, and if he was discovered, he'd have to run. He ran. Said stop Zetsu. White Zetsu and White didn't White Zetsu, but White Zetsu didn't White didn't Zetsu didn't he ran. Kakashi frowned and asked, "Who is the other party? You didn't notice him at first?" Kakashi's insight was extremely keen. When Hinata first used the Byakugan, he didn't seem to find anything unusual. But Hinata seemed to use other perception abilities, and he found that someone was secretly watching him. The opponent's hiding ability was strong. Hinata shook his head slightly and said slowly, "I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it." The Byakugan didn't find anything unusual. Kakashi frowned. He always felt that Hinata seemed to be hiding something. Maybe he was overthinking it. Kakashi was very clear about Hinata's character and experience. Hinata wasn't the kind of person who was used to hiding things. Except for performing tasks, he never had contact with people outside the village. Shaking his head, Kakashi laughed at himself. Was it because he was too nervous? In this kind of dangerous environment, even Hinata was beginning to feel suspicious. Since we've removed the surveillance, our whereabouts are absolutely confidential. Kakashi analyzed. Hinata, we need to immediately pass through the country of River and reach the border of the country of Fire. Only when we reach the country of Fire will we be absolutely safe. Hinata nodded, glanced at Kakashi and asked, "Sand hide outside, are we not going to care?" Kakashi said indifferently, "They're separated from us, they won't encounter any danger." Hinata thought about it and nodded. "Then let's go." Country of River. A lush small country with many rivers. The 5 major countries didn't border each other, and there were many small countries that acted as a buffer between them. The country of River was a country that acted as a buffer between the country of Fire and the country of Wind. With such a weak national strength, the country of River was completely powerless in the face of external threats. And the tacit understanding between the major countries was to place the war in these small countries. Organizations originally didn't need to worry about this. However, organizations currently need to develop in a low-key manner and secretly collect information about the Jinchuriki, so they can only set the ambush location in the country of River and disguise themselves as ninjas from other shinobi villages. Although leaders' words are nice to hear, all we've done since joining the organization is to make money. Deidara sat on a stone and complained, Sasori Dage. Speaking of which, the Sand Village seems to be your former village, right? But it seems that you've been living a miserable life recently. Shut up. Sasori's real body was hidden in the Hirujuku, and his tone was full of impatience. How long do you want me to wait? Haiden said playfully. Speaking of which, isn't it your people who are responsible for watching us? Kakuzu said in a deep voice. For money, it's worth waiting for a long time. After a moment of silence, Deidara looked up at the sky and said with a hearty smile. It's already dawn. Hirujuku's tail moved, and Sasori said faintly. I can feel it. They have entered the country of River. Kakuzu stood up from the stone and said with some eagerness. This is the first time I've seen a transaction between major countries. Huh? Haiden looked at Kakuzu with a puzzled face and asked. Kakuzu-san, haven't you lived for a long time? You should have seen this kind of thing many times, right? Haven't you robbed this kind of money before? Kakuzu said faintly. Only the money earned by working can make me feel at ease. Haiden said in surprise. You seem to be very excited this time. Kakuzu glanced at Haiden coldly and said in a deep voice. This is a task given by leader. I'm only responsible for carrying out the task. Haiden sneered with a face full of disdain, and then said excitedly. Ah, it's already a new day, and I also want to offer a new tribute to Chatsu-sama. Give me the girl who beat up Ghost Mackerel so badly. I want to use her for the ceremony. I believe Chatsu-sama will be very satisfied. Chapter 226. Kakuzu said coldly, Don't be too careless with your poor taijutsu. You can't beat the Hyuga ninja. Haiden waved his three-moon sickle and pointed at Kakuzu provocatively. Do you want to try? Speaking of which, I actually want to use you for the ceremony. Kakuzu looked at Haiden coldly. If he didn't like this guy, he would have already killed him. Deidara reached out and kneaded the clay for a while, then took out a clay bird and waved his hand and threw it into the air. Boom! In a burst of smoke, the clay bird turned into a clay bird. Deidara jumped and stood on the back of the clay bird and flew in the air. I'll give them a gift first. I hope they will like my art. Well. Hiroko slowly raised his head. Sasori said coldly, Hey, Deidara. Don't kill my man, he has other uses. Besides, can your explosion be regarded as art? Art is something that can be passed down for a long time and perfectly. Eternal beauty is art. Deidara was not convinced. Eternal beauty is art. Although we are both creations, Brother Scorpion, and I respect you very much, art should be dazzling and fleeting. Sasori said gloomily. What did you say? Deidara, it seems that you still don't understand what real art is. Kakuzu said coldly. Enough, only money is the real art. Sasori and Deidara. Deidara was too lazy to argue with a vulgar person like Kakuzu who only had money in his mind. The clay bird flew high in vain. Looking up from the ground, they could only see a small dot that was almost invisible. Flying leisurely through the jungle, Deidara saw through the camera of his left eye that a dozen figures were moving quickly through the woods below. At such a high distance, I don't know if the Byakugan can see. Well. While talking, Deidara put his hands into the clay bag and began to knead. After a while, Deidara held a large pile of clay bombs in his hands and threw them down from the air. In the woods, a group of 16 people from the Sand Hidden Village was moving quickly. Marky was always vigilant. Although after separating from Shinobu's ninjas, the possibility of Sand Hideout's team being ambushed was very small. Marky originally thought so too. But would Shinobu's ninja be so kind? Marky had to figure out Kakashi's intentions with the greatest malice. In Shinobu's team, there is also a little girl from the Hyuga main clan. Kakashi will not ignore this. Moreover, Hinata could still use the power of 9 tails. With such great value, Marky did not believe that Kakashi would put Hinata in danger. Teacher Marky? Handbao moved closer to Marky and asked, What's wrong with you? Marky shook his head slightly and said in a deep voice, "It's nothing. It's just that those people from Shinobu," Hanbao said seriously. "Did you feel it too?" "Yes." Marky nodded slightly and said with a dignified face. Kakashi chose to split up. Maybe he noticed something. "What is that?" Marky looked at the fast-jumping white insects in the woods in front of him. He is not a perceptual ninja. These little insects jump without sound, and their speed is extremely fast. Marky can't tell what they are at all. But the little insects that are so fast that even an elite jonin can't see them clearly. Do they really exist? "Enemy attack!" Marky shouted, Hanbao. Hanbao did not hesitate. He took out the 3 stars fan and waved it forward. Wind release, Great Sickle Weasel. The violent wind blew away everything in front of him in an instant. The trees were cut into pieces, and everything in the woods was blown away. If someone has good eyesight, they can find a large number of small white insects in a pile of trees. Great Sickle Weasel is a wind release ninjutsu that integrates both attack and defense. The attack range is huge and the duration is very long. More importantly, Great Sickle Weasel can create a vacuum effect, making all ninjutsu such as fire release, sound and bomb ineffective. Deidara stood on the clay bird and saw that his attack was broken. He thought that even if he couldn't blow people up, he would let Shinobu and Sand Hideout see his art. Thinking of this, Deidara made a hand seal with one hand and shouted, "Ha!" Through the camera in his left eye, Deidara could clearly see that there was a little fire in the wind release below, but then it was drowned in silence. The most annoying thing in Deidara's life is not that no one appreciates his art, but that his art is muted. "How dare you look down on me? I'll show you this." Deidara was a little angry. He quickly squeezed out a doll-shaped bomb with both hands, and threw it into the woods below with both hands. Boom! The doll-shaped bomb became huge in an instant, and accelerated towards the forest below. The shadow covered the sun, and a Shinobu Sato looked up at the sky and exclaimed, What is that?" Marky followed Shinobu Sato's gaze, and the hair on his back instantly stood up, and he shouted, "Retreat!" After that, Marky didn't care about the others and pulled the Hanbao, and Kankuro quickly fled to the distance. Although he didn't know what kind of ninjutsu this was, the little fire that lit up in the wind release was still noticed by Marky. With such a big doll, he didn't know how big the attack range was. Deidara stood on the clay bird and muttered, "You people dare to look down on my art? Humph. Feel my art in the sublimation of this explosion." Art is explosion. Rumble. The forest with a radius of nearly a kilometer was instantly swallowed by the explosion, and there were flames everywhere. Even the trees outside the explosion range were blown into a mess by the shockwave of the explosion. Deidara had long forgotten the so-called mission. Looking at the explosion below and feeling the huge power of the explosion, he said with a fanatical expression, "This is my art. Only in that moment of sublimation can I feel my art." Not far away, Kakuzu, Haiden, and Sasori looked at the flames that rose into the sky in front of them, and were slightly stunned. "Hey, the people of Shinobu and Sand Hideout won't all be killed, right? What about our mission? And Deidara is so arrogant. This will arouse the vigilance of the 5 great shinobi villages." Farther away from the center of the explosion, Hinata, Kakashi, Kazekage, and Reikage were sitting in an open space in the forest barbecuing. The huge explosion in the distance could be seen almost at a glance. Hinata and Kakashi got up in an instant. Kakashi frowned and said in a dignified tone, "What is the enemy's goal?" Kakashi was a little confused. Normally, ninjas should inquire about the opponent's intelligence before attacking, even if someone wants to rob the war compensation. Seeing that there are no Shinobu ninjas in Sand Hideout's team, it is reasonable to guess that the other party has divided into teams to act. But why is there still an attack? Is the enemy not sure about the information? Or is their goal not the war compensation? Chapter 227. Hinata and Kakashi looked at each other, and their expressions gradually became dignified. The people of Sand Hidden Village were attacked. "Kakashi-sensei, should we support Sand Hideout?" Hinata was a little uncertain. Dealing with this kind of complicated relationship, Hinata still can't do it. Kakashi furrowed his brows. The explosion in the distance gradually stopped, but with such a large range of ninjutsu, Kakashi wasn't sure whether the people of Sand Hideout were still alive. If the people of Sand Hideout were all dead, then the truth of this matter would depend on Kakashi and Hinata's explanation. The people of the Sand Village had no choice but to believe it. But if the people of Sand Hideout were still alive, when they returned to the Sand Hideout, they would say that Kakashi had received the information in advance, but he didn't inform Sand Hideout. Instead, he proposed to split up and send Sand Hideout's group into the enemy's ambush to attract the enemy's firepower, while he took the opportunity to return to Shinobu. Although Kakashi would also have his own explanation. But this matter will definitely affect the relationship between Shinobu and Sand Hideout. Even if Sand Hideout didn't dare to cut off contact with Shinobu at this moment, Shinobu's plan will be completely ruined because of this. Shinobu wanted to tie Sand Hideout to his own war chariot, so he had to consider the attitude of the Sand Hideout. Tsunade certainly wouldn't hand over Kakashi, but everything that Shinobu won in the Shinobu collapse plan will all go down the drain. Shinobu wasn't Sand Hideout, although the amount of war compensation was large. It was just icing on the cake for Shinobu. In fact, Konoha was more interested in political influence than the compensation from the sand. Thinking up to this point, Kakashi said seriously, "Let's go and scout for information first. If there are still people on the Sand Hideout side alive, we'll save them. Remember, if things go south, retreat immediately." Hinata nodded. "Got it." Kakashi turned to look at the Wind God and the Thunder God and said indifferently, "You two follow behind us and stay 1,000 meters away. Depending on the situation, you can choose to support us." The Wind God and Thunder God turned to look at Hinata. Hinata instructed, "Listen to Sensei Kakashi." "Don't worry, big sister." Kakashi shouted, "Let's go." The distance between Hinata and the Sand Hidden Village wasn't too far. After a few minutes, Hinata was able to see the battlefield with his Byakugan. "Kakashi-sensei." Kakashi stood on a tree and stopped moving forward. Hinata followed and jumped to Kakashi's side. "It's the Akatsuki." Hinata observed the situation in front and explained, "The Akatsuki has a total of 4 people. The one who attacked is in the sky. It's a ninja who can fly." Kakashi looked up at the sky. Through the dense forest, he could vaguely see a small dot hovering in the air. Hinata continued, "The Sand Hideout side suffered heavy casualties. At present, there are only 6 people alive and all of them are injured. In addition to the 4 jonin responsible for the escort, only Kankuro and the Handbow are still alive. Attack range and attack power are not the same concept. The attack range of the Great Sickle Weasel is far more than the Raisin Shuriken, but the difference in attack power between the two is like clouds and mud. Deidara's ninjutsu is not as good as Hinata's attack power, but the attack range is far more than Hinata's. However, a ninja is only flesh and blood after all. If the most common kunai is used well, it can also kill most ninjas." Kakashi asked, "Are the 2 sides fighting?" Hinata shook his head slightly. "No, the other 3 people of the Akatsuki didn't act. It seems..." Kakashi's eyes moved and said lightly, "I understand." Among the 4 people of the Akatsuki, someone launched an attack without confirming the information. Speaking of this, Kakashi couldn't help but turn to look at Hinata. This person's style is similar to Hinata's. "Hinata, last time in the Land of Water, how many times can you use that attack?" Hinata scratched his head. 2 times. But if you overdraft your physical strength, you can use it about 3 times. Kakashi was a little envious when he heard this. The amount of chakra in one punch is enough to consume a quarter of Kakashi's chakra, and Hinata punched dozens of times in a row at that time. "Will I die?" Hinata shook his head and said no. Kakashi has a general judgment of Hinata's strength in his heart. In addition to a slight lack of combat experience, Hinata in his full state may have reached the level of a Kage, or even surpassed the ordinary Kage. But combat experience is also very important. At least Kakashi has several ways to escape from Hinata's ninjutsu bombardment. Hinata. The people of the Akatsuki are all ninjas with extremely rich combat experience. Since they sent a ninja who can fly, it proves that they have made arrangements for you. If you fight with them, you will be caught in an instant. Hinata's small face was dignified. Kakashi is right so far. Hinata is still a ninja with big moves. Hinata's current situation is actually similar to Otsutsuki Kagaya. A set of big moves without thinking. If he can't kill the enemy, he will die. Even if Hinata intends to exercise his combat experience, there are only a few ninjas in the ninja world who can fight with Hinata. Although there are some in the village, Hinata has also sparred with Tsunade several times. But sparring is different from actual combat. Even if Tsunade is serious, he won't really kill Hinata. In a ninja battle, life and death are often decided in an instant. Kakashi continued, Hinata, you're right. Since the other 3 members of the Akatsuki haven't made a move yet, use that move to attack them. I will take the opportunity to rescue Sand Hideout's people. Kakashi knows how bad Hinata's combat experience is. Last time in the Land of Water, with Hinata's strength, he was played by 2 jonins. If Kakashi has the strength of Hinata, he can kill those 2 jonins in a few seconds. Since he doesn't have enough combat experience, he can only be reckless. Hinata pointed to the sky. The person in the sky has something on his left eye. It seems to be some kind of instrument. It should be able to see things from a distance. If Hinata jumps into the air to attack, it will be easy for Deidara to take the opportunity to counterattack. Kakashi said seriously, Leave that person to me, I will cover you. Hinata nodded and said, Then I have no problem. Good. 3, 2, 1 action. Whoosh, whoosh. Hinata and Kakashi teleported at the same time, rushing toward their respective targets. In the woods, Kakuzu, Haiden, and Sasori were walking leisurely, as if they didn't put this mission in their eyes. The members of the Akatsuki have always been like this. They are not in a hurry, as if nothing can make them feel anxious. They are very sure that no matter how the rats escape this time, it is impossible for them to escape from their encirclement. Haiden curled his lips and complained. Deidara went too far. I don't know if my sacrifice is broken and sticky. Shut up. Kakuzu coldly said. There are still people alive. Haiden slowly turned around, and Sasori indifferently said, My people are over there. Kakuzu's green eyes looked at him, and coldly said, Let's go, ha. Kakuzu suddenly turned around. Behind the 3 members of the Akatsuki, a fashionable girl with sunglasses on her face has jumped into the air by stepping on a tree trunk. On her hands, 2 chakra big fists were lifelike. Chapter 228. Pegasus Meteor Punch. Hinata has already entered the Sage mode. His fists quickly waved. The blue chakra fists were like cannonballs, falling from the sky one after another. In less than a second, Hinata has already punched 20 times in a row. Kakashi knows nothing about the Akatsuki, but Hinata knows the organizations like the back of his hand, even more than they know themselves. Since the immortal duo is also here, Hinata's move is very likely not to kill them. But if it's just to cover Kakashi's rescue, 20 punches are enough. Hinata reserved 70% of his chakra. All the attacks were aimed at Sasori. Kakuzu has 5 hearts. Unless Hinata hits him from close range, it's very difficult to kill him. Haiden will probably be blown to pieces. However, Haiden is a taijutsu-type ninja. Since Hinata already has his information, naturally, he won't take him seriously. But Sasori is quite troublesome for Hinata, especially the Iron Sand of 3 generations Kazekage, which can be very good at restraining Hinata's ninjutsu. Boom, boom, boom. The shockwave generated by the explosion was like a tsunami. Hinata couldn't borrow any force in the air. He could only be blown upside down by the shockwave, barely able to control his body to land on the ground. On the other side, Kakashi also found the people of the sand-hidden village. Kakashi said in an irresistible tone, Come with me. As soon as the words fell, Kakashi didn't care whether the people of Sand Hideout followed or not. He ran in the direction of Fujin and Raijin. Marky's face was gloomy. He gritted his teeth and finally nodded and said, Follow him. Boom, boom, boom. There was an explosion in the distance, and the earth trembled a few times. Temari couldn't help but exclaim, Is Hinata okay? Kakashi looked at the hand bow in surprise, then nodded and said gently, Don't worry. Marky turned to look at Kakashi and asked coldly, Is this Hinata's technique? Hanbao thought that Hinata had already fought with the ninja, but Maki knew that this explosion was different from the previous one. Kakashi did not explain and continued to rush forward. Maki continued to ask, Kakashi, did you get the information in advance? Kakashi explained calmly. From the standpoint of Shinobu, I have no reason to betray you. It's the enemy who launched the attack without any information. Maki's face became even more ugly. This situation is even worse than being betrayed by Kakashi, because they are innocent. Who is the one who attacked them? Is he blind? Found you. Deidara stood on the clay bird, flying at a low altitude about 20 meters above the ground, blocking in front of Kakashi and others. Kakashi frowned and asked in a deep voice, Aren't you going to support your companions? Deidara said indifferently. Even if I go to support them, they will still die in the end. Looking at Kakashi and others, Deidara said with a serious face, I didn't expect you to be able to escape from my art. You have successfully angered me. Hanbao said with a little disgust. Art? Deidara said in a fanatical tone. My art is explosion. I like the look in your eyes. When you see my art, you should have this kind of shocked and envious look. Deidara took out a clay bird and showed it off like a child. Look, how is it? This smooth line, and this perfect two-dimensional shape. My work can move, but when it is tangible, it looks like a shape. This can explode. It can be sublimated in the explosion. It is my real work. Kakashi was silent for a moment and said lightly, A fanatical artist? Deidara said with an intoxicated face. Yes, I am a real artist. I have begun to like you a little. After saying that, Deidara suddenly threw out the clay bird in his hand, formed a sea seal with both hands and shouted, Since you can appreciate my art, you won't mind being sublimated under my art, right? Boom. In a burst of smoke, the clay bird instantly became bigger and flew quickly toward Kakashi and others. Kakashi was facing a formidable enemy. Hanbao took out the 3-star fan and was about to counterattack. It's Earth Release. Hinata ran out of the woods and reminded loudly, Kakashi-sensei, use right-on. Kakashi didn't dare to neglect. He took out a kunai from the ninja tool bag, attached it with right-on chakra, and threw it at the clay bird. The clay bird fell to the ground without any accident and was completely silent. Ninja battles are based on information. As long as you know the opponent's information, there are many ways to restrain the opponent. However, it is rare to see someone like Deidara who is completely restrained by right-on in the ninja world. Deidara's face was ugly to the extreme. He knew the weakness of his move, but it was the first time since Deidara's debut that the opponent saw through his information at a glance. Looking carefully at Hinata, Deidara was furious, and his face was slightly ferocious. Dojutsu again. Although it's not as annoying as Itachi, but this look. I will never forgive this look that denies my art. Hinata felt that he was wronged. Byakugan is a kind of hazy and natural feeling when he doesn't open his eyes. But if he opens his eyes, he will look a little bit ferocious. It may be because of Dojutsu. When he looks at Byakugan, he will feel that he has been seen through by the other party. But Hinata dares to swear that he never denied Deidara's art, and he never looked at him with contempt. More importantly, Hinata is still wearing sunglasses at the moment. How did Deidara see his eyes? Could it be a figment of his imagination? Kakashi stepped forward and said lightly, Since my technique can restrain him, then leave this to me. As for the remaining two, I'll leave them to you. Behind Hinata and others, Kakuzu and Sasori walked side by side. Although these two people looked extremely embarrassed, their murderous aura seemed to be substantial. Haiden was nowhere to be seen. It is estimated that Haiden was either seriously injured at the moment, or his body was mutilated by Hinata's explosion, and he can no longer continue to fight. Maki looked back and was slightly stunned after seeing Sasori's face. You are? Sasori? Filihu has been broken, and Sasori has also revealed his true face. Maki said with a look of disbelief. Your face? It didn't change at all? Sasori glanced at Maki, and there seemed to be some nostalgia in his tone, but at the same time, there was some indifference and indifference. I didn't expect someone in the sand-hidden village to remember me. With that said, Sasori raised his head to look at Dedale and scolded faintly. Dedale, you've gone too far. Rashly attacking without confirming the information. You will cause our mission to fail. Chapter 229. Is that so? Deidara said indifferently. But as long as we kill all of them, there should be no problem, right? By the way, I didn't expect Sasori Dage to be so young. Are you really over 30 years old? Sasori said coldly. Shut up, Deidara. This was also the first time Kakashi saw Sasori. This boy looked like he was only 15 years old, but he was actually older than him. Hinata explained. He has made himself into a puppet, and there is something on his left chest. That thing may be his body, but it is also his weakness. Sasori turned to look at Hinata and said faintly, really a pair of good eyes. If I make you into a puppet, you will be my proudest work. Hentai. Hinata glared at Sasori. This red-haired boy dared to covet his body. Also, I'm wearing sunglasses. How did you see my eyes? Kakashi and Hinata looked at each other, and Hinata already knew what he meant. That green-eyed one has 3 hearts in his body, which are respectively wind, fire and lightning chakra, I estimate. Hinata hasn't finished his words when Kakuzu introduced himself. Originally there were 5. But it doesn't matter, I can use your hearts as a supplement. Maybe, Kakuzu touched his eyes and said coldly, maybe I can give myself a pair of better eyes. Sasori turned to look at Kakuzu and said faintly, she is mine. Kakuzu said coldly, this kind of taijutsu-type ninja, even if made into a puppet, won't be of any use. Sasori said coldly, among my puppets, I still lack a perception-type puppet. Hinata. Hinata felt that his whole body has been coveted, and he is very popular. Who knows how many people in the ninja world are secretly coveting his body? So scary, Deidara said arrogantly, hey, that Byakugan is my target, you two pay attention to it. Hinata retreated behind Kakashi and said weakly, how about you 3 fight first, only the winner has the right to have me. Kakuzu, Deidara and Sasori. Kakuzu said coldly, don't be a joke. Looking at Hinata and Kakashi's forehead protectors, Kakuzu said with some nostalgia, seeing your forehead protectors reminds me of the first shinobu ninja I fought. The first Naruto. What a coincidence. Hinata waved at Kakuzu and said with a serious face, hello. Speaking of you, I have fought with the first Narutos. Kakashi looked at Hinata with a strange look. Hinata said seriously, it was during the Chunin exam, Orochimaru summoned the first Naruto's soul. I threw a shuriken at him from more than 800 miles away. What was the process of fighting with the first Naruto? Hinata asked curiously. Kakuzu. Hearing Hinata's words, even Deidara and Sasori, who are from the same organizations as Kakuzu, looked at Kakuzu with a strange look. Hey, Kakuzu-san, did you also throw a shuriken at the first Naruto from more than 800 miles away? Kakuzu said, I will definitely kill you. Hinata taunted, I hit the nail on the head, you're angry out of shame. Kakashi also became serious. Looking at Marky and the others, he said faintly, since you already know the opponent's weakness, leave the one who can fly to me, and I will leave Sasori to you. Hinata, since you and that green-eyed guy fought with the first Naruto, then I will leave him to you. Having said that, Kakashi said with a dignified face, everyone from the sand hideout, I suddenly proposed to split up. You must have thought that I already knew the information in advance. Indeed. Although I don't know who the enemy is this time, there is a spy in the sand hideout. Yuliang. Marky's face changed greatly as he exclaimed, what? Yuliang only hesitated for a moment, then used the body flicker technique to retreat behind Sasori. Kakashi continued, since we are all from the sand, then I will leave him to you. Sorry. I originally planned to return to Shinobu and explain the situation to the sand hideout. Hinata looked at Kakashi with a helpless face and said, Kakashi-sensei, since you know who the spy is, why didn't you attack him just now? Marky said with a cold face, because before he is exposed, he is still a ninja of our sand village. Hinata was taken aback when he heard this, but he immediately reacted. If Kakashi rashly attacked just now, he would definitely be besieged by Marky and the others. In the situation of being surrounded by strong enemies, if he messed up, it would be suicide. Kakashi opened his forehead protector, revealing the Sharingan in his left eye, and said in a deep voice, "Go!" As soon as Kakashi's voice fell, Hinata rushed out in an instant. The ground instantly exploded under Hinata's power, and Hinata rushed towards Kakuzu at an extremely fast speed. His right hand instantly condensed the chakra fist and used the mountain breaker on Kakuzu. So fast. Kakuzu's eyes narrowed. He heard the name Hinata more than once, but he didn't take it seriously in the past, but this time, he really recognized Hinata's strength. Hinata was able to achieve such a great reputation at the age of 12, and it was absolutely impossible for him to be a person with an undeserved reputation. In Sage Mode, Hinata's ninjutsu and taijutsu have been greatly improved, and under the sudden attack, Kakuzu didn't even have time to react. However, although the mountain breaker's chakra light penetrated Kakuzu's body, it only scattered the lightning. It's the thunder clone. Kakuzu stood on a tree and looked down at Hinata, and said lightly, "Your combat experience is too far away from mine." Kakashi was already entangled with Deidara. With the thunder chakra restraining Deidara, even if Deidara had the advantage in the air, Kakashi and Deidara still maintained a 50-50 situation. Seeing the situation on Hinata's side, Kakashi loudly reminded, "Hinata, don't fight him in close combat. In short, you're right to be reckless." Two black things with masks came out from Kakuzu's back. The thing was composed of black lines with hands and feet, and together with Kakuzu, it surrounded Hinata in a triangle. Kakuzu said lightly, "You already noticed?" "Sure enough, a pair of good eyes. But I have seen through your technique, and facing 3 different directions at the same time. How are you going to attack?" After saying that, Kakuzu quickly made hand seals, and the 2 clones also opened their mouths, and wind and fire energy condensed in front of their mouths. Thunder release, false darkness. Kakuzu opened his mouth, and the thunder spear attacked Hinata at an extremely fast speed. Hinata is not without any combat experience. The 2 clones are obviously waiting for Hinata to dodge, and then take the opportunity to attack Hinata. With a move of his feet, Hinata jumped into the air, and his whole body spun toward the fire clone. Soft fist technique, heaven reversal bomb. Although this move looks stupid, at least it's a unique skill that combines attack and defense. Chapter 230. The chakra sphere with a diameter of 10 meters hit the fire attribute Earth Grudge clone from bottom to top, destroying everything in its way, leaving a deep mark on the ground due to the high-speed rotation of the chakra. Kakuzu's eyes were dignified, and he instantly judged the situation in front of him. That's not an ordinary chakra. The Earth Grudge decisively gave up the fire release ninjutsu and dodged Hinata's heaven reversal bomb. Bang bang bang. Hinata broke several trees in a row and jumped on a tree with the help of the rotation force and confronted Kakuzu. Sure enough, he's not simple. He's worthy of being an old monster who has lived for more than 90 years. If the Earth Grudge used fire release, the only result would be that the fire release would be instantly scattered by the heaven reversal bomb, and the Earth Grudge clone would also be shattered by the heaven reversal bomb. The Senjutsu chakra is not so easy to resist. Kakuzu also became serious. Hinata's move is too dangerous. As long as he is hit, his heart will be destroyed immediately. His eyes glanced at Sasori. If possible, Kakuzu actually wants to fight against Shinobu Sato and fill up his heart first. However, Shinobu and Sand Hideout have the advantage in numbers. How to choose the opponent is not up to the people of organizations. The Fire and Wind Grudge clones stood in front of Kakuzu, and the Wind and Fire ninjutsu were instantly launched. Compound ninjutsu Flame Storm, Tutu and Pressure Damage were launched at the same time. Up to 5 meters high flames swept towards Hinata like a wave. The attack hasn't arrived yet, but Hinata has already felt the amazing heat. However, in Byakugan's sight, Kakuzu's body has quietly approached Sasori. Hinata jumped up, and the sea of flames passed under Hinata's feet. The scorching heat wave burned Hinata's body. Both fists blasted towards the ground at the same time. 8 trigrams palm, mountain-shattering strike. 2 chakra beams struck the ground, and Hinata used the recoil to leap high into the air, instantly dodging the sea of flames. At the same time he shouted a warning. Hanbao, be careful over there. What? Hanbao couldn't care less about what Hinata said. They were already fighting with Sasori and Yu Liang. Sasori used 3 generations of Kazakage's puppets without hesitation. Although Sand Hideout's people were enraged, they could only dodge under Sasori's attacks. They couldn't even organize an effective counterattack. The puppet master's fighting style is strange and changeable, just like the Hyuga clan's gentle fist. When facing monsters, the puppet master can't play a role at all, but if facing ordinary people, the puppet master will become quite troublesome. The Hanbao's wind release can effectively block Sasori's hidden weapons. She uses the 3 stars fan to activate the wind release, and the speed of her ninjutsu is extremely fast. However, although Scorpio's hidden weapons could be blocked, the iron sand of the 3 generations of Kazakage made Sand Hideout's group suffer a lot. The Hanbao was the main force to resist the hidden weapon, and it was also the main target of Scorpio's attack. Once the Hanbao was broken, Sand Hideout's side would quickly be defeated. It's too late. One of his hands, which was connected to a black thread, instantly grabbed the throat of a Sand Hideout Jonin and dragged him into the dense forest in the blink of an eye. Argha! Screams resounded through the forest, and then they stopped. One dead. Hinata's expression was ugly. Kakuzu actually had the time to sneak attack Shinobu Sato in the middle of the battle. He didn't even put him in his eyes. Boom! A fireball came, and Hinata casually scattered it. Hinata had no time to care about Sand Hideout's side at this moment. The wind and fire clones spat out more than a dozen wind and fireballs and bombarded Hinata in the air. While still in the air, Hinata continuously punched the 2 clones with both fists. Pegasus Meteor Punch. Hinata punched 10 times in a row. Chakra's fist hit the ground like a cannonball, and the earth screamed. Although there was no fire, the strong shock wave swept in all directions. Even Sand Hideouts and Kakashi's battlefields were affected by the explosion. Kakashi was right. If Hinata continued to fight with Kakuzu, then the final result would be that Hinata would be defeated by Kakuzu and then killed mercilessly. Only recklessness was the way to go. The gap in combat experience was too big. Sand Hideout's side lost a Jonin, and couldn't hold on for long. Although Kakashi could still maintain a 50-50 situation, he was already at a disadvantage. Deidara's clay was quite well prepared. When the explosion dissipated, the wind and fire clones of the Earth Grudge were completely submerged in the explosion. On the messy ground, there were still some black marks that could be seen like stars in the sky. Kakuzu's small eyes widened a little. Although he had just seized a heart, he lost 2 hearts in an instant. This was obviously not a good deal. The shock wave of the explosion made Hinata fly a little higher. Kakuzu was well hidden, but in the sight of the Byakugan, Kakuzu's hiding place was almost exposed. Die. Hinata was about to continue, but found that the 2 chakra clones were quickly approaching Kakuzu. Not good. I'll die. Kakuzu's attention was completely focused on Hinata. If Hinata used that move again, Kakuzu was sure that he would be blown up alive. Bang! Bang! 2 consecutive heavy punches, one on Kakuzu's head and the other on his stomach. I didn't dote on you guys for nothing, Hinata shouted. He threw an empty palm behind him, and his body accelerated towards the direction of Kakuzu. Hinata ate a few soldier food pills and quickly formed hand seals. Shadow clone technique. Eat my continuous heaven reversing bomb. Kakuzu was sent flying by the wind god and thunder god. He didn't even have time to get up from the ground. Hinata created 3 shadow clones. Including himself, there were 4 Hinata in total. 4 chakra balls, each with a diameter of 10 meters, smashed on Kakuzu's body. Kakuzu screamed in agony. The 4 chakra balls spun close to each other. Kakuzu was sandwiched in the middle, and the friction from the high speed of the spinning balls almost crushed him. Boom! The shadow clones turned into smoke and disappeared. Hinata looked serious. He's not dead yet. Cough. Kakuzu slowly emerged from the ground and stared at Hinata. His body emitted an aura that was as deep as the abyss. 50 million. It's not that easy to earn. Hinata was stunned at first, but then he realized that it was the price he got from the underground exchange. I didn't think that I was worth that much. However, when he thought of his own abilities, Hinata felt that the people who put a bounty on him were too blind. They only offered 50 million. Hinata pushed his sunglasses on his head and looked at Kakuzu. You only have one heart left. I won't give you another chance. Is that so? Kakuzu's murderous intent was cold and threatening, but Hinata didn't attack immediately. Her digestion speed wasn't that fast. If he used another big move, Hinata's chakra would be depleted. Chapter 231. Although Kakuzu seems to be at the end of his rope, he is still a ninja from the same era as the first Naruto, so he might have even more powerful secret techniques. Hinata didn't dare to be careless. Kakuzu looked at Hinata with his green eyes and said coldly, "After using so many powerful techniques, your chakra isn't enough anymore, right?" Hinata sneered. "You can try." Kakuzu said coldly, "There will be a chance." As soon as his voice fell, countless black lines drilled out from the ground under Kakuzu's feet, and pulled out a figure with only half of his body. It's Haiden. Kakuzu-san, I didn't expect you to be in such a sorry state. Haiden didn't have the slightest self-awareness. Even if only half of his body was left, and his hands and feet were broken, he still laughed loudly at Kakuzu. Shut up. Kakuzu coldly scolded, and then looked at Hinata for the last time, and then quickly disappeared into the ground with Haiden. Hinata. Kakuzu's momentum was so amazing that Hinata thought that Kakuzu was going to use a big move. Hinata was even prepared. As long as Kakuzu's chakra made the slightest move, he would use another big move. But who would have thought that Kakuzu was just fainting, and the purpose was to take Haiden with him? So, the heart that Kakuzu just snatched is of the earth attribute? Hinata even suspected that Kakuzu was planning to escape from the beginning. Everything he did was to snatch the earth attribute heart, so that it would be easier for him to escape. Fujin and Raijin came to Hinata's side and stood obediently and respectfully bowed. Big sister, thank you for your hard work. Hinata turned around and patted the two fat men, and said with great satisfaction, You two did a good job. When I go back, I will treat you to a big meal. The two idiots scratched their heads and giggled, and there was a proud look in their eyes. Hinata said, Let's go. Let's go support the others. The situation on the field was very clear. Kakashi can maintain a stalemate with Deidara with lightning release ninjutsu. If Deidara didn't have the advantage in the air and Kakashi didn't lack long-range ninjutsu, Deidara might have been defeated by Kakashi. After all, Deidara was only 16 years old this year. On the other hand, on Sand Hideout's side, in that instant, another Jonin from Sand Hideout's side died. A Jonin is the high-end combat power of a ninja village. The Sand Hideout lost 2 Jonins, and 1 Jonin defected. It can be described as a heavy loss. Maki, Kinkuro, and Hanbao were besieged by Sasori and Yu Liang, and the situation was precarious. Seeing Hinata rushing over, Scorpio immediately gave up on Sand Hideout's trio. The iron sand scattered into round beads and swept towards Hinata. Magnetic release, sand iron time rain. Hinata shouted. You two stand behind me. Revolving heaven. The 10-meter diameter chakra ball protected Raikami and Fujin behind it, bouncing off all the iron sand that was shot at them. Sasori looked up at Deidara and said faintly, Deidara. Mission failed, it's time to retreat. Deidara said unwillingly, Hey. It doesn't seem to have failed yet. Are you in a hurry to retreat now? My art hasn't shown its most gorgeous light yet. Let me show you. Well, Sasori said coldly, shut up. Retreat immediately. Deidara. Humph. Deidara helplessly put the clay back into the clay bag, glanced at Kakashi, and then flew in the direction of Sasori. Sasori manipulated 3 generations of Kazekage puppets to jump on the clay bird, followed by Yukari. The clay bird instantly pulled up. Deidara looked down at Hinata, and then flew away. Hinata didn't dare to pursue, and he didn't even dare to stop Deidara and Sasori from leaving. In fact, Deidara's last sentence really scared Hinata. If Deidara didn't care and directly used C318 or C4 Garuda level ninjutsu, Hinata didn't dare to guarantee whether he could survive. Practice was the only standard to test the truth. Hinata always felt that he was already very strong. With his understanding of the organization's intelligence, he thought that even if he faced Akatsuki, he was not without the power to fight. However, the truth of the matter was extremely cruel. Except for Haiden, this kind of weak chicken, when facing other people, Hinata didn't have any means to deal with them except for using big moves. Ninjutsu is still a bit too monotonous. Hinata analyzed his shortcomings. In addition to the lack of combat experience, Hinata's moves are too monotonous, which is also a big weakness of his. Hinata's moves are the kind of straightforward type. Ordinary jonin may find it difficult to resist, but at the level of Kakuzu, it's easy to avoid Hinata's unique moves. Although Pegasus Meteor Punch hasn't been cracked yet because of its large coverage, Hinata can't always use this move. And continuously using sandbag-like fist consumes too much chakra. If he doesn't kill the opponent before chakra runs out, then Hinata is likely to be killed by the opponent. Hinata was a little depressed. After returning to the village this time, he must develop a few ninjutsu. Kakashi staggered over, he was exhausted. Out of the 16 people of the sand-hidden village, only Marky, Kankuro, and Hanbao were still alive. The rest died in this attack. This kind of loss is simply unacceptable for the sand-hidden village. Losing 3 jonins in peacetime is enough to cause a shock in the ninja world. Marky's injury was extremely serious. At this moment he was sitting on the ground and said weakly, "We can't fight anymore. How could they retreat so easily?" Kakashi looked at Hinata and said lightly, "It should be that they don't have the confidence to deal with Hinata's moves. Deidara is actually okay after all, he can fly. But Sasori will definitely die if he gets hit by Hinata's move." Marky asked in a deep voice, "Who are they?" Kakashi said lightly, "They are people of the Akatsuki. Don't you have any information about them in Sand Hideout?" "Is that so?" Marky said faintly. Then he lowered his head and remained silent. Sand Hideout's loss this time was too great, and this attack was also inexplicable. The enemy didn't even confirm the information and directly launched the attack. If the enemy was willing to confirm the information a little bit, Shinobu and Sand Hideout wouldn't have suffered any losses. Although the Akatsuki chose to temporarily retreat, because they were afraid of Hinata's moves. But ninjas won't give up the mission easily. A temporary retreat doesn't mean a real retreat. Once those people had rested and reorganized, the next attack might be even fiercer. Kakashi looked at Marky and asked, "Can you still walk?" Marky looked at Hanbao and Kankuro and shook his head slightly. "I'm afraid not." Hanbao's injury was very serious, and Kankuro was poisoned and unconscious. Kakashi said lightly, "You continue to go to Shinobu. We will separate here." Chapter 232. Splitting up again? Marky was now filled with fear towards the word detachment. Marky and Kakashi had carried out 2 missions in total, but in both missions, Kakashi had suggested that they split up. What was even more coincidental was that in these 2 operations, the enemy had attacked Marky and his men, and then Kakashi had rushed over to support them. The first time was okay, Mike Guy had directly used his ultimate, and Kakashi and the others had already rushed back to support, so it could be considered a daunting experience without any danger. But this time, fine. It was the same coincidence, but this time, it was Hinata's turn to use his ultimate to scare the enemy away temporarily. Shinobu's people seemed to only know how to use big. If he was in a squad, Marky wasn't sure if he would still be so lucky. After all, Marky, Kankuro, and Hanbao were already heavily injured. Although Hanbao also had a big move, it would be difficult for him to pose a threat to the enemy. In the battle just now, Hanbao had also used his ultimate skill, Spirit Communication Technique, / Dance. However, he was unable to break through the 3 generations Wind Shadow's Iron Sand defense, and was unable to deal any damage to the enemy. Marky analyzed in a deep voice. Although the enemy's goal is the war compensation, their organization hasn't been exposed yet. In order to hide the organization's information, we have become their target. So, I don't agree with splitting up. Kakashi frowned and pondered for a moment before nodding slightly. Marky's words made some sense. The organization's actions were very secretive. It was obvious that they were planning a major conspiracy. Under such circumstances, silencing people was indeed a good way to hide. Under normal circumstances, it would take us 16 hours to pass through the country of River. According to the original plan, we would leave in the morning and reach the border of the country of Fire at night. But, Kakashi glanced at the sand hideout trio and said indifferently, although you guys are already riddled with wounds, we can't rest. We have to cross the river country immediately. Marky said in a deep voice, although the enemy also suffered losses, other than the last person who appeared, the other three were actually not injured. If I were them, I would have launched a second attack soon after meeting up. The interval between the two attacks will be less than an hour. Glancing at Hinata, Marky continued, now that our information has been exposed, the enemy will adjust their battle plans accordingly. We don't have the upper hand in terms of combat strength. Next time, the opponent will be the one to decide. Kakashi said indifferently, it's precisely because of this that we have to flee for our lives. Wind God, Thunder God. Both of you carry Kankuro and the hand bow. Marky, you don't have the strength to fight anymore. Even if you follow us, you will only become a burden. Immediately return to the Land of Wind and mobilize ninjas at the border of the Land of Wind to support us. Marky thought about it and nodded slightly. This arrangement is quite reasonable. After this, I hope that Shinobu and Sand Hideout can exchange information about the organizations. I don't think we need to hide the information about the enemy. Marky solemnly said. Kankuro and the hand bow will be entrusted to you. Kakashi. Kakashi nodded and said, don't worry. Let's go. After that, Hinata and Kakashi continued to run in the direction of Shinobu. After watching Hinata and the others leave, Marky returned to the Land of Wind alone. Their current location is not far from the Land of Wind, but after all, the two sides are going in opposite directions. Sand Hideout's support may come late. Marky looked back and said in his heart, be sure to hold on. In the woods, Hinata and the others quickly passed through. Coming to Kakashi's side, Hinata asked with concern, Kakashi-sensei, are you okay? Kakashi is already panting. The burden of the Sharingan is too great. If it wasn't for his perseverance, Kakashi would have fainted. Shaking his head slightly, Kakashi looked at Hinata with a smile in his right eye and said softly, I'm fine. Hinata pouted and said, don't force yourself. Kakashi didn't answer. At this point, if he doesn't force himself, he can only wait for death. Hinata's eyes were slightly dignified, and her small face also became serious. Kakashi-sensei, yes? I decided before the second attack of the organizations, I will develop a new unique skill. What? Kakashi's face was full of confusion. Hinata, what did you say? The organizations are likely to be hiding nearby at this moment. And after they adjust their state and arrange a new tactic, the second attack will begin immediately. Marky estimated that the organization's second attack will be in an hour, but this may be underestimating their efficiency. Not long after the people of the Sand Village entered the Land of Wind, they were attacked by the organizations. The location of the attack was very close to the Land of Wind. The guy who can take other people's hearts will definitely go to the Land of Wind and take Shinobu Sato's heart. Marky. Kakashi was a little worried. There is also a ninja who can fly among the four. It may not be long before the organizations launch a second attack. And then you said you will develop a new ninjutsu in an hour? Do you think I will believe it? Hinata didn't care what Kakashi was thinking, but in Hinata's view, the so-called new unique skill is nothing more than coming up with a reasonable idea. As long as there is a reasonable idea, with Hinata's control of chakra, it is actually very simple to develop a new ninjutsu. Organizations are very strong, so the power to determine the victory must be based on the senjutsu. Only the senjutsu may be able to determine the victory or defeat. All of Hinata's current moves are actually based on the 20 Gods air attack. Even the so-called 40 Gods empty strike was just a 20 Gods empty strike that was infused with natural energy. Chakra Fist is the foundation of all of Hinata's ninjutsu. But in fact, as a ninja of the Hyuga clan, Hinata can release chakra not only through his hands, but also through all the acupuncture points of his body. It's just that it is difficult to control. However, there is another advantage of Sage Mode, which is to improve the ninja's control of chakra, and also to improve the maintenance of ninjutsu. When Naruto first learned Raisen Shuriken, it was only a close combat ninjutsu. But in Sage Mode, it can be thrown from a distance. Although the natural energy is violent, if it is integrated into chakra, it is actually easier to be controlled by the ninja. So Hinata thought again, if in Sage Mode, can he maintain the chakra overflowing from all the acupuncture points of his body? Without delay, Hinata immediately condensed Chakra Fist and quickly absorbed the natural energy to enter Sage Mode. Kakashi wondered, "Hinata, what are you doing? Try this." Hinata whispered, controlling the acupuncture points on his back to release chakra, and condensing chakra into the shape of wings. Huff! Huff! The wings flapped twice and Hinata flew up in an instant. Chapter 233. Coincidental encounters were often accompanied by pleasant surprises. But Marky's heart at this moment was only surprised and not happy. The thing that he didn't want to encounter finally happened. Damn it! Marky cursed, his face was gloomy. So pitiful. Was he abandoned by his companions? At the border of the Wind Country, the Akatsuki's group of 4 blocked in front of Marky. Kakuzu's sudden retreat forced Deidara and Sasori to retreat temporarily. In the previous battle, Kakuzu lost a total of 4 hearts. Although he seized an earth attribute heart from Shinobu Sato, he only had 2 hearts. Hinata still had chakra left, which was enough to kill Kakuzu. If Kakuzu didn't run at that time, he might have been killed by Hinata. Now that Kakuzu left, the most dangerous one was actually Sasori. Sasori couldn't fly like Deidara, and the weakness of his left chest had been exposed. As long as Hinata grasped the opportunity, he could kill him in one move. So Sasori had to call Deidara to retreat together. Kakuzu wanted to replenish his heart, and Haiden's limbs were blown to pieces by Hinata's first attack. And now they also needed to be reattached. They had to find ninjas. Looking around, the closest place to them was the sand-hidden village of the Wind Country. There must be sand hideouts team patrolling the border of the Wind Country. And there was also a special base to monitor the border security. As long as they casually attacked a few sand hideouts team, Kakuzu and Haiden could recover their combat power. Shinobu and sand hideouts side were now injured. And even Kakashi had exhausted his chakra. The only fighting power left were Hinata and the 2 fat guys. They couldn't escape from the Wind Country. As long as Akatsuki's group of 4 recovered their fighting strength, and with Dedale's flying bird, they could quickly catch up with Hinata and others. It's just that the organizations didn't expect that as soon as they arrived at the border of the Land of Wind, they would encounter the sand hideouts Jonin Marky. The horns were overjoyed. The heart of a Jonin is different from that of a Chunin, and Marky's head can be sold for a sum of money. It's a big profit. 23 million taels. Kakuzu stared at Marky with his green eyes and said coldly, "Although it's not as valuable as the heads of Hatake Kakashi and Hinata, it's still a bonus." Fei Duan couldn't help but complain. Hey, Jiao-san, don't tell me you're thinking of going to the gold exchange office?" Kakuzu glanced at Fei Dan and said lightly, "It won't take long. Also, if you say one more word of nonsense, I'll leave you here." Fei Duan admitted without any integrity, "Jiao-san, the good Jiao-san, the cute Jiao-san, the handsome Jiao-san. You can't bear to leave the poor me alone, right?" Marky was already in a defensive posture. His injury was extremely serious, and chakra was about to reach the bottom. Facing the organization's 4 people, plus the sand hideouts Jonin, Marky had no hope of survival. Marky recalled his life. He was also a genius ninja of the sand hideout. Although his reputation in the ninja world was not as big as Kakashi's, in the sand village, who didn't say that Marky was a genius ninja. After being promoted to Chunin, Marky was valued by the 4th Kazekage, and gradually became the 4th Kazekage's confidant. Even the 3 children of the 4th Kazekage became Marky's subordinates. From this, it can be seen that the fourth Kazekage valued Marky. The first half of Marky's life can be said to be smooth and basically, he didn't encounter too many setbacks. Until he met Kakashi. During the mission with Kakashi, Kakashi has proposed to split up 3 times. The first time, maybe because there were Shinobu's ninjas in the team, it was a close call. The second time, the Sand Village suffered heavy losses. And this time, it was the third time that they split up. Marky is also going to die. Marky suddenly felt that Kakashi was his nemesis. As long as he meets Kakashi, nothing good will happen. But Marky looked up at the sky and sighed softly in his heart. Perhaps I will never meet him again. Kankuro and Han bow. As long as they can safely reach Shinobu, I will forgive you, Kakashi. After saying the last words in his heart, Marky looked at the organizations and said coldly, "Come on." At the very least, he had to buy some time for them. Sasori looked at Marky and said faintly, "That's more like it, at least you didn't lose face for the Sand Village." Whoosh! At the same time, a dense storm of senbonzas attacked Marky. Marky quickly printed hand seals. Wind release, puff. A hand came out of the ground and grabbed Marky's throat and pressed Marky to the ground. The black thread also wrapped around Marky's body, making him unable to move. Scorpio's attack missed. Kakuzu faintly said, "He has a wind attribute heart, I just happen to need it." In addition, Haiden also needs to reconnect his body. Sasori's eyes were indifferent. Although he appreciated Marky, he didn't care about Marky's life or death. Since he turned himself into a puppet, Sasori has already forgotten what life and death meant. Perhaps this was the only way for him to forget the pain of his childhood. He didn't feel it anymore. Even when he saw the son of his enemy, Kakashi, he didn't feel angry. Marky lay on the ground and smiled bitterly. In the end, I didn't buy them much time. I'm really useless. Marky died, Haiden stood up again, and Kakuzu also had a third heart. Sasori looked at Yuliang and said, "Take us to Shinobu Sato at the border." Yuliang respectfully said, "Yes, Sasori-sama. Everyone please come with me." 10 minutes later, Kakuzu had already filled up 5 hearts. Haiden moved her new limbs and said with a face full of dissatisfaction, "Hey! I want to get my weapon back. In addition, give me that Hyuga family. I must personally perform the ceremony for her." Kakuzu coldly said, "You are responsible for dealing with the 2 fat men." Haiden coquettishly said, "No, Kakuzu. The sacrifice for Kyushin-sama must be the best. At most, I will leave the corpse for you to sell for money, okay?" Sasori said coldly. "I want to use her body as a puppet. Hyuga Hinata is not an ordinary ninja. She will be one of my proudest works. Maybe she will be stronger than the 3rd Hokage." Kakuzu disgustedly shook off Haiden and coldly said, "If you fight with Hinata, you will be killed by her in one move." Dedale urged, Hey, you guys, if you don't go now, they will escape from the country of Kawa." Deidara made 2 more clay birds and lightly snorted. "You guys sit on the other 2. Sitting with guys like you who only think about money and sacrifices will tarnish my artistic cells." Haiden discontentedly said, "Deidara, next time I will curse you." Kakuzu coldly said, "Only money is the only faith." While talking, a group of 5 people stood on 3 clay birds and rushed in the direction of the country of Kawa. Chapter 234. Hinata and Kakashi's group fled for only 53 minutes before they were blocked by the organizations. Kankuro was poisoned and unconscious, and the Hanbao was seriously injured. He couldn't even move by himself. Kakashi's chakra was also exhausted, and now he was barely holding on with his perseverance. The only fighting power left in the team was Hinata and the 2 brothers, Raikami and Fujin. The 3 of them, there was no hope. 3 clay birds surrounded Hinata's group in a triangular formation. Hinata had also condensed the Senjutsu chakra's fist, and his small face was full of determination. Although there was a little accident in the middle, this time's mission was finally completed. Kakuzu gloomily stared at Kakashi and coldly said, "Although the thunder attribute heart has been repeated, your heart may be more useful." Kakashi held the kunai and looked at the Akatsuki's group with vigilance. Deidara held the 5 clay birds in his hands and chuckled. Same old rules, I'll give you a little gift first. Sasori looked at Deidara and warned. Deidara, be careful not to destroy my goal. Deidara said impatiently, I know. How many times do you want to say it? As soon as his voice fell, Deidara waved his hand and threw out 5 clay birds. Boom! In a burst of smoke, the clay birds instantly became bigger and flew quickly toward Hinata's group. Quickly dodge! Kakashi shouted and jumped to dodge together with Hinata. Fujin and Raikami also jumped out of Deidara's attack range with Kankuro and the hand bow on their backs. Boom boom boom! Along with the roar of the explosion, the hidden weapons rained down. Kakuzu had also prepared ninjutsu, lightning release, fire release and wind release. Boom! The first to be hit were Fujin and Raikami, and both of them turned into smoke and disappeared. Hinata and Kakashi were also hit by Kakuzu's ninjutsu and turned into smoke one after another. Shadow clone. We've been tricked. Kakuzu glanced around and said coldly, since it's a shadow clone, their real body won't be too far away. Split up and chase after them. Sasori glanced at him from the corner of his eyes and said indifferently, don't order us around. Deidara said indifferently, I can't control the clay to be too far away from me. If you chase separately, you can go down by yourselves. But be careful, don't let them take you down one by one. Kakuzu jumped down from the clay bird, followed by Fei Dan. Fei Dan and I will form a 2-man team. Sasori said faintly, I will go with Deidara. Yu Liang, your identity has been exposed. Go to base 3 and wait for me there. Yu Liang replied respectfully, yes, Lord Scorpion. In a certain cave in the country of River, Hinata, Fujin, and Raikami were sitting around the fire barbecuing. Kakashi, Kankuro, and Hanbao had already fallen into a coma. Kakashi's original plan was to run away directly. From the speed of ninjas, Hinata's group has already been running for an hour. Akatsuki's group may not have a chance to catch up with Hinata's group. It's just that the burden of Sharingan on Kakashi is too great. Kakashi thought that he could still hold on, but he didn't run far before directly falling down. Such a big person still trying to be brave, it's really worrying. Hinata can only change his original plan and took Kakashi and the others to find a cave to hide temporarily. But before hiding, Hinata divided 4 teams of shadow clones into the appearance of several people, and ran towards the land of fire from 4 directions. This should be able to temporarily hide from the people of the organizations. Moreover, Senjutsu chakra is extremely stable. Even if the shadow clone is far away from the main body, it won't suddenly disappear. The land of fire is so big, it shouldn't be easy to be discovered, right? Hinata was a little uncertain. Many people think that the area of the world of Naruto is actually very small. After all, in the plot of the original author A.B. My Love, the officials announced that it only takes 3 days to run from Shinobu to the hidden sand village. 3 days seems to be a short time. But one also has to consider the speed of a ninja. If the normal running speed of a ninja is 20 meters per second, then 1 minute is 1,200 meters, which is 2 kilometers. 1 hour is 72 kilometers. In the original story, My Love was kidnapped by the organizations, so Kakashi's group and Hanbao must be rushing at full speed. Assuming they run 16 hours a day, that's 1152 kilometers. In 3 days, that's 3,456 kilometers. In Hinata's previous life, the linear distance from Beijing to MSK was 5,843 kilometers. Looking at the map of Naruto, it can be seen that the world of Naruto is actually very big, not as small as people think. In such a big map, it would be difficult for the 4 ninjas to find Hinata's hiding place. Well, big sister, what's wrong? Hinata whispered. A team of shadow clones was destroyed. Oh. Kazekage and Reikage didn't care about this at all. After a no sound, they stared at the half-cooked roasted chicken and drooled. Although they don't have to worry about eating and drinking, no. Although they temporarily hid from the organizations, they are all experienced ninjas. Although Hinata has cleaned up the traces, they can't hide it for long. Moreover, there are 3 seriously injured people in the team. They don't have much fighting power at all. Once they are found by the organizations, Hinata has to be distracted to protect Kakashi's group, so he can't concentrate on fighting, and the chance of winning is almost zero. It's not that I don't work hard, it's just that the enemy this time is too strong. Hinata pulled his hair in distress. He wanted to think of a strategy, but he can't think of anything. Although Hinata often slacks off in training, his taijutsu has reached the limit that his body can bear. At the age of 12, his arms and legs are small. No matter how strong his taijutsu is, it can't be strong. This is the limit of a taijutsu ninja. Hinata previously said that he wants to develop a new ninjutsu before the organizations attack again. Now it should be considered a success. In Sage Mode, Hinata can release chakra from all the acupuncture points on his body and maintain it, condensing it into various forms. It seems useless. But what if he simulates the meridians and acupuncture points in chakra? Just like the chakra wings he condensed before, it looks like he can only fly like a bird. No, it looks like an angel. But if he simulates the meridians and acupuncture points in the wings will become attack-type wings. In this way, Hinata can at least use the wings to release kata and mountain break, freeing his hands. And with the air advantage, Deidara's threat is not big. Even at the critical moment, Hinata can use jet chakra to accelerate instantly. But this method is too wasteful of chakra. It can only be used at the critical moment to avoid a fatal attack. Kakuzu, Haiden, and Sasori are ninjas who can't fly. So in theory, as long as Hinata kills Deidara, he can fly back to Shinobu with Kakashi, Kankuro, and Hanbao. Hinata glanced at Raikami and Fujin. These two are too fat. They weigh at least 300 pounds. One person can take the weight of 2 people. If he takes 5 people at a time, the burden on Hinata is too great. But if I take them twice, Hinata secretly analyzed. As long as the war compensation is sent back to Shinobu, the Akatsuki's mission is considered a failure. Continuing to entangle with Hinata is just a meaningless battle. But this is only for ordinary ninjas. Those people of Akatsuki were all lunatics, and each of them was drooling over his body. Hinata estimates that they will continue to entangle with him. Big sister, the roasted pheasant is ready. Fujin felt that if Big sister didn't eat first, it would be rude to eat it himself. Oh. Hinata picked up the roasted pheasant and ate it. He was nervous and lost his appetite. Raikami said with a happy face, following Big sister, no matter where we go we can eat meat, brother. Fujin reminded, idiot. Don't just eat. We have to eat while roasting it, so that when we finish eating this one, the next one will be roasted. Raikami said with admiration. As expected of brother. Chapter 235. As one of Naruto's original characters that he liked in his previous life, Hinata knew more about Deidara's intelligence. Deidara was 19 years old, which is the type of person who died young. This year he should be only 16 years old. Deidara's character is simple and straightforward, but in behavior he is crazy, bold, and even a little cruel. Deidara, who seems crazy, can calmly think about tactics and analyze the situation in battle, and has a more rigorous tactical thinking. Judging from the strength, if it's a one-on-one, Hinata feels that his probability of winning is relatively high. After all, Deidara's air superiority is gone. Even if it's C4 Garuda, Hinata's Byakugan can see clearly, as long as the distance is high enough to avoid the coverage of those miniature bombs. If he sprays chakra with all his strength, and at the same time uses Senjutsu chakra to protect his body, even if Deidara self-destructs, he may not be able to hurt Hinata. It's just, Hinata glanced at Kakashi and the other two. Once Deidara uses Garuda, or self-destruct, Kakashi and the other two will die. The only way to destroy the air superiority of the Akatsuki is to kill Deidara before he launches a large-scale ninjutsu, so that he can't use his big move. Few people in the ninja world can match Hinata in terms of the rhythm of the battle and the speed of launching ninjutsu. The moves of Gentle Fist don't need to make hand seals. Are you afraid? After analyzing the strengths and weaknesses of both sides, Hinata has a little confidence. In this case, I can only shoulder the burden of the survival of the entire team. Hinata slowly got up, turned to look at Kakashi, and said with a serious face, Kakashi-sensei, don't worry. I will bring you back to the village alive. Hey, big sister, don't you want to eat? No, I'm going out to inquire about information. After hesitating for a moment, Hinata couldn't help but remind them, but you two shouldn't eat all of it. At least leave some for me. I'll be back soon. Wind God asked innocently, Big sister, do you need us to go with you? Thank you, but not for the time being. After all, this is an aerial battle. After leaving the cave, Hinata activated Byakugan and absorbed the natural energy to enter Sage mode. Under natural perception, the 4 members of the organizations had nowhere to hide. They actually split up. I've been completely underestimated. In fact, considering the combat strength of Hinata and the others, organizing a search team was a more reasonable tactical arrangement. However, they obviously couldn't imagine that Hinata developed a new ninjutsu in just 1 hour. Or rather, it would be more appropriate to call it a new usage of the 20 Gods' empty strike. Identifying the direction of Dedale and Sasori of the Red Sand, Hinata quickly ran over. Well, Kakuzu and Haiden's team destroyed one of Hinata's shadow clones, and the remaining 2 shadow clones shouldn't be able to hold on for long. Perhaps they will soon realize that all the teams currently acting are just shadow clones, and not the real body mixed in with the shadow clones to confuse them. But Sage mode should still be a secret in the ninja world. If the 4 of them didn't know about Sage mode, they would think that the real body must not be too far away from the shadow clones. This was common sense, and under this common sense, the Akatsuki's group of 4 fell for Hinata's trap. In the forest of the Land of River, Dedale and Sasori of the Red Sand also found another team of shadow clones. Are they the real body? Dedale was a little uncertain. Sasori of the Red Sand faintly said, Whether they are the real body or not, we will know after testing. Sasori of the Red Sand took out the puppets of the 3 generations Kazekage. Iron sand overflowed from the puppets' mouths and condensed into tiny senbon in the air, and then like a rainstorm, they attacked Hinata's team. Magnetic release, iron sand time rain. Bang bang bang. Hinata's team in the forest was undoubtedly destroyed by the iron sand senbon, and they didn't even have the chance to struggle. Another shadow clone. Sasori of the Red Sand turned his head and looked into the distance and said faintly, According to the traces we found before, if Kakuzu and the others also found shadow clones, then only the last team is left. Their luck is good. Dedale chuckled and said, Brother Sasori, sit tight. Not far from the 2, Hinata was hiding behind a big tree, observing the movements of Dedale and Sasori of the Red Sand through the Byakugan. Only the last team is left. But this distance, Hinata had a bit of a headache. The people of the organizations are still very vigilant. Even if they act in teams, they are not too far away from each other. Although being feared by the enemy proves your strength, but at the same time, it will also increase the difficulty of your sneak attack. Once I attack, Kakuzu and Haiden will rush over to support me in a minute and a half. Haiden can't hit the target in the air, but Kakuzu's ninjutsu can, as long as the position is not high from the ground. So Dedale will definitely fight at a low altitude to create a tactical environment for his teammates to support him. After analyzing the general situation, Hinata no longer hesitated and instantly condensed chakra wings behind him. The wings flapped a few times in succession. Hinata's feet slowly left the ground. Hinata has also practiced flying before, but after all, it is a ninjutsu that he just mastered. Hinata can't fly at will, and he has to simulate the meridians and acupoints in the wings. It is very difficult to control. Hinata felt for a moment and condensed chakra fist on his hands. To absorb natural energy, one needs to be in a static state, but chakra wings move on their own, so it can't absorb natural energy. But chakra fist is different. It is Hinata's arm that moves chakra fist. So for Hinata, chakra fist is in a relatively static state. Just like when Jiraiya uses senjutsu, the 2 Sage Toads standing on Jiraiya's shoulders. For others, Jiraiya and Sage Toad are moving, but for Jiraiya, Sage Toad is in a relatively static state. So Hinata can only use chakra fist as an extension of his body, using chakra fist to absorb natural energy, and then guide natural energy into his body to maintain Sage mode. This method of maintaining, only consumes chakra at the beginning, but as long as the state of maintaining is stable, the consumption of chakra is almost negligible. Whoosh! Flapping his wings hard, the dust on the ground flew up. Hinata's whole body instantly rushed into the sky and flew quickly towards Deidara's clay bird. In order to increase the surprise of the attack, Hinata also used chakra to increase his flying speed to the highest. In just a moment, Hinata flew behind the clay bird, and a small bump appeared on the chakra wings on his back. Senjutsu Mountain Break Strike. Dazzling chakra rays shot out in an instant, hitting Deidara's left arm before he and Sasori could react. Even the clay bird under their feet was blasted into pieces. Tch. Hinata curled his lips. After all, it was his first aerial battle, and he missed. Chapter 236. Ugh! Deidara covered his left shoulder and cried out in pain. Only blood kept dripping from his empty sleeve. Although he suffered a heavy blow, Deidara was somewhat glad at the moment. Hinata's move was not aimed at his left shoulder, but at his heart. Was it a crooked hit? Deidara turned to look at Hinata. Those wings. Is she also a flying ninja? His right hand reached into the clay bag and pinched 2 clay birds and threw them down. Boom! Deidara landed steadily on the clay bird and shouted, "Brother Sasori!" Another clay bird swooped down from the sky, caught the falling Sasori, and flapped its wings to Deidara's side. Hinata stabilized his body with difficulty. Hinata, who had just accelerated his flight with chakra, suddenly stopped, and almost fell from the sky. I'm still not used to aerial combat. Hinata looked at Deidara and Sasori with a cold face. If he wanted to destroy the air superiority of the Akatsuki, he must kill Deidara. Sasori said lightly, "Deidara, be careful, her target is you." Less nonsense. Deidara roared angrily. Damn it. I'm completely underestimated. It's this kind of eyes that seem to see through everything. It's really disgusting. Hinata retorted loudly. This has nothing to do with me, it's my fault. Deidara didn't listen to Hinata's explanation at all. He reached into the clay bag, took out a large piece of clay, and ate the clay in a few bites. After chewing for a moment, Deidara opened his mouth and spat out a puppet shape. He looked at Hinata and roared. You have completely angered me. After that, Deidara controlled the clay bird to quickly fly to the sky, aimed at Hinata's position, and threw the puppet shape from the air. Boom! Amidst the huge smoke, the puppet became incomparably huge and fell down at an even faster speed. Throughout the process, Sasori had been blocking in front of Deidara, using 3 generations of Kazakage's iron sand to defend against Hinata's sudden attack. This kind of attack is useless against me. Hinata chuckled. The wings on his back flapped, and he instantly flew into the sky, maintaining the same altitude as Deidara. No matter how big your attack range is, you must be outside the explosion range. And I can fly, so your spell is useless against me. Rumble. A C3 grade clay bomb was powerful enough to destroy a village. A huge roar came from below, echoing between the sky and the earth. It was as if heaven and earth were shaking. The radiance of the explosion was extremely dazzling. Even the light of the sun seemed to be somewhat overshadowed at this moment. Hinata frowned slightly. The light was too dazzling. The forest below was instantly razed to the ground. Deidara, Sasori, and Hinata were flying at the same height, and the explosion on the ground did not have any effect on the 3 of them. Deidara's angry expression suddenly calmed down. Hinata felt bad, but it was too late. Even if the feeling was very weak, the slight touch on his shoulder and back made Hinata's whole body stiff. Deidara made a seal with one hand and shouted crazily, "My art is explosion!" Ha! Boom! A ball of fire engulfed Hinata. The chakra wings behind Hinata and the chakra fists on his hands dissipated in an instant. His eyes were slightly closed, and his whole body fell from the sky. Deidara's exasperated expression, coupled with the explosion of C3-18, attracted all of Hinata's attention. The dazzling light produced by the explosion could also temporarily block the vision of Byakugan. But the ninjutsu that Deidara used to attack were only 2 of the most common clay bombs. Uncle Kakuzu is right, you really have no combat experience. Dedale showed a hint of pride and chuckled. Falling down. Hee hee, I can't let Sasori Brothers' precious material be broken. Well. After the words fell, Dedale controlled the clay bird and swooped down toward the falling Hinata. Not far from the battlefield. Something like a pitcher plant drilled half of its body out of the trunk. The space around it fluctuated slightly, and Uchiha-bordered soil appeared out of thin air. It seems that the fight is very fierce. White Zetsu's tone was high as he joked. Fortunately, we were a step late, otherwise, we would be finished if we were involved. Black Zetsu had reattached to White Zetsu. He turned to look at bordered soil and said lightly, "That is Hinata." Bordered soil's right eye under the mask turned to the direction of Hinata and questioned. In our plan, it seems that we don't need the power of Byakugan. Black Zetsu explained. Her Byakugan is different. Madara-sama once studied the Byakugan, which is as famous as the Sharingan. Although it is difficult to evolve the Byakugan, Hinata has the qualifications to open the Byakugan. Bordered soil was silent, waiting for Black Zetsu to continue to explain. Black Zetsu continued to deceive. The Eye of the Moon plan only needs Rinnegan, but the power of the Byakugan can make illusions into reality. If the power of the Hyuga clan is integrated with Uchiha, it will even surpass the combination of Uchiha and Senju. Sharingan is the Eye of Illusion, and Byakugan is the Eye of Truth. This is the result of Madara-sama's research. If the power of the Byakugan is added to the Eye of the Moon plan, then the world created by the Eye of the Moon will no longer be a dream, but a real reality. Just like the combination of the power of Uchiha and Senju can launch Izanagi. Bordered soil, you know that technique? Bordered soil was skeptical. After all, when Uchiha Madara was still alive he didn't say anything about it. Black Zetsu explained. Madara-sama also wanted to use the power of the Byakugan, but it was difficult to evolve, so Madara-sama had to give up. Bordered soil, you are lucky. If we get the help of Hinata, we can even reverse time and let everything go back to the past by combining the power of Uchiha, Senju, Hyuga, and the Jubi. Bordered soil looked down at Zetsu. Black Zetsu was the will of Uchiha Madara, so all that he said should be the real idea of Uchiha Madara. No matter how good Uchiha Madara described the Eye of the Moon plan, it was only a dream world after all. But if this dream can be turned into reality, just like Izanagi. After seeing the power of Izanagi, Bordered soil thought that what Black Zetsu said was reasonable. If the dream world created by the Eye of the Moon is turned into reality, then everything can go back to the past. Go back to Bordered soil touched the mask on his face. Go back to before everything happened, and then stop all the tragedies from repeating. Thinking of this, Bordered soil's face under the mask became a lot more serious, and he said, Deidara and Sasori are still there, we will act later. Good. Black Zetsu nodded and slowly sank into the ground. As long as Bordered soil wants to save people, no one can stop him. Chapter 237. Bang. With a muffled sound, Hinata fell on the tail of the clay bird. Dedale made a seal with one hand and controlled the clay bird's tail to roll Hinata up. Go to hell. Hinata suddenly opened his eyes and blasted out with both palms at the same time. 8 trigrams mountain break. Boom. The dazzling chakra ray pierced through the clay bird in an instant. And Dedale's real body hidden in the clay bird was also penetrated. The light of the C3-18 explosion did make Hinata's Byakugan slightly absent-minded, and he ignored the 2 clay birds flying from behind. But natural perception would not lie. Hinata beat them at their own game. At the moment of the explosion, he controlled Chakra's wings and Chakra's fists to change shape to wrap around his whole body, resisting the power of the clay bomb. In order to deceive Dedale and Scorpion, Hinata turned off Byakugan, removed Sage Mode, and let himself fall from the air. Hinata wanted to launch a sudden counterattack at the moment when Dedale was most relaxed and kill Dedale in an instant. Dedale was also very vigilant. He hid his real body in the clay bird and deceived Hinata with a clay clone. In Dedale's view, Hinata had turned off Byakugan. Even if Hinata pretended to be dead to deceive people, he would only attack his clay clone. However, Dedale did not know that Hinata actually had more than just Byakugan's perception ability. The ability of natural perception allowed Hinata to perceive Dedale's sneak attack. And the ability of good and evil perception allowed Hinata to find the location of Dedale's real body. Blood dripped from the air, and Dedale's chest was instantly pierced by chakra ray. His eyes were closed, and he lost all consciousness and fell from the air powerlessly. The clay bird under Scorpion's feet lost the support of chakra, as if it had lost all its vitality, and fell from the air like a dead object. Hinata tried to condense chakra wings. However, under normal circumstances, Hinata found it difficult to control the chakra on his back. Thud. Hinata and Sasori fell to the ground one after another, while Dedale fell to the side and lost his consciousness, leaving blood all over the ground. Not a bad tactic, Sasori praised. You can determine the location of Dedale's true body. It seems that you have a second perception ability besides Byakugan. Hinata activated the Byakugan and condensed the chakra fist. He chuckled and said, Ayaya, you've seen through me. Looks like I'll have to silence you today. Sasori's eyes became vigilant. The 3 generations of Kazekage stood in front of Sasori, and the iron sand formed a shield, but they didn't make a move. Are you waiting for your companions to come and help? Hinata said indifferently. Don't forget, I also have companions. Sasori glanced sideways at Dedale. His breath was very weak, but if he didn't save him as soon as possible, Dedale would die from excessive blood loss in a few minutes. The atmosphere was silent for a moment, and Sasori suddenly made a move. The puppet of the 3 generations of Kazekage stretched out its left arm, and the seal on the left arm was lifted. Thousands of puppet arms stretched out from the seal and swept toward Hinata. Revolving heaven. The arm stretched out extremely fast, and Hinata could only use revolving heaven to resist. The rotating chakra ball destroyed all the puppet arms in an instant. Sasori was not in a hurry and said faintly, It seems that my judgment is correct. You didn't fly to the sky to take advantage of the air, which means you can't do it. Is chakra not enough, or did you cancel some technique? At the same time, the iron sand condensed into a triangular cone and spun like a top towards Hinata's head. Hinata jumped back several times in a row to avoid Sasori's attack. Ugh. Hinata was somewhat discouraged. Kakuzu pretended to be pretentious before, and Hinata really thought that Kakuzu had some powerful trump card. Now it was Hinata's turn to be pretentious, but he didn't expect that in just a few seconds Sasori would see through the flaw. Sure enough, am I too stupid? Duh. Stepping on the trunk, Hinata jumped, and his whole body spun towards Sasori. Since he was afraid of Sasori's hidden weapon attack, then he used a ninjutsu that combined attack and defense. Sasori said faintly, Your speed is a lot slower than before. It seems that you really did cancel some technique to increase your strength. At the same time, another part of the iron sand condensed into a shield form in front of Sasori, and at the same time blocked Hinata's revolving heaven bomb. Zizi. The harsh sound of friction continued, and the iron sand shield flashed with sparks, but Hinata still couldn't break through Sasori's iron sand defense. Hinata stopped spinning and landed on the ground. The iron sand changed in an instant, and the iron sand shield and the triangular cone turned into countless iron spikes, densely distributed all around, and flew toward Hinata from all directions. Magnet release. Iron sand technique. Even if Byakugan's insight was amazing, but at this moment, Hinata was still a little flustered, and he didn't know how to avoid this move. It still took some time to enter Sage mode, but the current situation was urgent. The best way to break through the defense was to break through the surface. And these iron sand were poisonous. As long as the skin was scratched, he would really die. Hinata was a little envious of First Hokage's Sage mode, and if he could go back alive this time, Hinata vowed to study it carefully. Becoming an immortal in an instant was really enviable. Revolving heaven. Hinata spun quickly, and the sharp iron spikes pierced the chakra ball of revolving heaven, creating bright sparks. I blocked it. Hinata rejoiced in his heart. Sasori was a puppeteer, and puppeteer's battle was mainly based on mechanisms. Sinister, ruthless, strange, and tricky was synonymous with puppeteer. Puppeteers were never good at attack power. Even the puppets made by 3 generations of Kazekage were unable to break through the defense of revolving heaven under the attack of breaking through the surface with a single point. After all, revolving heaven was rotating, and in addition to its own defensive power, the rotating power could also reduce the opponent's attack power. Sasori was not in a hurry and said elegantly, "You think this is the end? The iron sand is flowing, it can change shape at will." Hinata looked around vigilantly. Although revolving heaven cleared an open space, Hinata's surroundings were densely packed with iron spikes. Sasori's hands moved, and the iron sand instantly changed shape. The vertical, iron spikes inserted in the ground became horizontal, iron spikes, and once again shot towards Hinata. Tisich. Hinata curled his lips, and could only use revolving heaven again. The number of iron spikes was too many, and Sasori was obviously unable to control it. But the chakra ball of revolving heaven could reduce the penetrating power of each iron spike, and redirect the attack power to the side. The Red Sand Scorpio obviously realized this as well. The range of ninjutsu can't break the defense of revolving heaven, and the attack power of ninjutsu can't hit. And that technique of hers is also very interesting. Chapter 238. In the face of Sasori's endless offensive, Hinata deeply felt the powerlessness of insufficient strength. Without the bonus of Sage Mode, even Mountain Break would find it difficult to break through the Iron Sand Shield's defense. This was a defensive power stronger than Gaara's absolute defense. Sakura's Monster Punch could break my love's Iron Sand Shield, but in the original work, Sakura couldn't break Sasori's Iron Sand Shield. Hinata didn't even need to test him. She already fully understood his abilities. But because he understood his ability, Hinata felt deeply powerless. Hinata didn't understand the puppet master's fighting style, so he didn't dare to rashly approach the 3 generations Kazekage's puppets. Once his skin was scratched by a hidden weapon, he would really be finished. However, Revolving Bomb, a ninjutsu that combined offense and defense, couldn't get close to Sasori. Kakuzu and Haiden had already appeared in Byakugan's sight, and at most 30 seconds, they would come to support Sasori. But Hinata needed about 3 minutes to enter Sage Mode. In other words, Hinata had to fight with the organizations for at least 2 minutes. Without Sage Mode, Hinata was probably only at the level of Kakashi. Perhaps Hinata's attack power was stronger than Kakashi's, but in terms of experience he was far behind Kakashi. Hinata quickly retreated a few steps, opening the distance between him and Sasori. Yes. My instructor is 50-50 Hataki. I can definitely force myself to be 50-50. Hinata hypnotized himself in his heart that he could definitely fight Kakuzu, Haiden, and Sasori equally. Humph. When I enter Sage Mode, I will beat the 3 of you until you kneel down and call your mother. Sasori also didn't rush to attack. His attack pattern was known for its strangeness, but it was still insufficient in terms of attack power. Hinata couldn't break the 3 generations Kazekage's Iron Sand Shield, and Sasori also couldn't break Hinata's Revolving Heaven. And Hinata's ninjutsu was too fast. Sasori used Iron Sand Barrier twice in a row, and Hinata also used Revolving Heaven twice in a row. Sasori looked at Hinata elegantly and slowly said, "Among the taijutsu-type ninjas, you are the first ninja to fight with me to this extent." So? Hinata blinked and asked excitedly, "Sasori of the Red Sand, are you willing to call me the strongest?" Sasori. If you can live on. Having said that, Sasori wasn't in a hurry to attack. Now both sides were stalling for time. It was time to see who could last until the end. A few kilometers away from the battlefield, Zetsu and Obito met again. Deidara is really the type to die early. It seems that we have to look for new members. White Zetsu pondered and said, "Who should we look for? Wow. I didn't know that there are so many ninjas in the shinobi world that can be recruited." Black Zetsu said in a deep voice, "This is not something to be happy about." White Zetsu's tone changed from cheerful to sad. "I have been with Deidara for so long. I am also reluctant to let him go." Uchiha Bordered Soil said lightly, Hinata really has some ability, but she can't hold on anymore. A sudden attack will arouse suspicion, I have to explain to Nagato later. Black Zetsu said indifferently. Nagato's problem is not big. In contrast, how to get Hinata to join us is more important. Bordered Soil completely believed Black Zetsu's nonsense. After all, Black Zetsu has no reason to lie to him. Bordered Soil asked. Shinobu's people. Did you find them? White Zetsu said in a long tone. I am a supervisory ninja, not a perceptive ninja. They can't be found if they hide. Unless we send a large number of clones. But we can't do it now. Bordered Soil said lightly. Forget it. Kakuzu and Haiden are coming. Hinata's defeat is set. Shinobu's life and death is no longer important. Black Zetsu said in a deep voice. Not necessarily if she can enter Sage Mode. Sage Mode? Bordered Soil asked curiously. Hinata has mastered Sage Mode? Black Zetsu was also a little confused. Her Sage Mode is different from Hashirama. I still don't know how she entered Sage Mode. Bordered Soil said lightly. When she joins us, everything will be clear. Hope Kakuzu and Haiden won't let me down. Black Zetsu said. Don't have too much hope. Even if we fail this time, we still have another chance. Oh. Bordered Soil looked sideways at Black Zetsu and questioned. You don't seem to be in a hurry? Black Zetsu said in a deep voice. She is different from you. She is a genius ninja, fully grown at the age of 12. Kakashi also needs her protection. Uchiha Bordered Soil. Black Zetsu. Are you laughing at me? Whoosh. Whoosh. Kakuzu and Haiden jumped down from the tree and looked at Hinata in front of them. Is she alone? Sasori said faintly. She alone is enough. Haiden looked back at Deidara and laughed arrogantly. Deidara won't die, right? I have already said that he is the type to die early. Shut up. Sasori scolded and turned to look at Kakuzu and said. Kakuzu, I'll trouble you. Kakuzu didn't speak. He walked silently to Deidara's side and squatted down. Black thread overflowed from his hand, and sewed up Deidara's wound. Hinata watched all this silently. No matter what they do, as long as they don't start a war immediately. Haiden looked up and down at Hinata a few times and said arrogantly. Although it looks very inconspicuous, you can beat Deidara to that extent. It is already very amazing. Sasori said coldly. You are the first person who was almost killed by her. Hinata was also angry when he heard this. Are you blind? How am I inconspicuous? I look much cuter than you. Haiden smiled indifferently and bit his arm. Bright red blood dripped to the ground, and the whole person seemed to be sublimated as he moaned. Ah dash, it looks so good. Stepping on the blood on the ground, Haiden began to draw the curse pattern. Hinata! He hit Haiden with his palm. Sasori warned loudly. Haiden quickly dodged. Haiden had been staring at Hinata for a long time. Seeing this, he quickly jumped back and avoided Hinata's empty palm. Boom! The empty palm hit the ground, and the curse pattern that Haiden painstakingly drew was smashed together with the ground. Haiden's move was simply too easy to crack. When Hinata watched Naruto in his previous life, he didn't understand Shikamaru's approach at all. Since he already knew that the circle was the medium of Haiden's curse, then he just needed to destroy the ground. Why did he have to pull Haiden out of the circle? Any ninjutsu could do it. Why did he have to do it so hard? The IQ of 200 must be fake. Chapter 239. The air was slightly frozen, and the scene was extremely awkward for a while. For a long time, with his immortal ability and the curse method of death by blood, Haiden has been extremely arrogant in dealing with people, thinking that no one in the whole ninja world can kill him. However, this time, Haiden's limbs were blown off by Hinata, and Kakuzu helped him to reconnect his body so that he could continue to move. Originally, this was not a big deal. But now, Hinata was able to break his curse so easily. This was also the first time Fei Duan realized that his curse ritual was actually so easy to break. Any explosive charm could easily do it. How can he be arrogant in the future? And the disclosure of the information means that he will inevitably be targeted in the future. Organization's goal is Bijou, and they are bound to be enemies with the 5 great ninja villages. Once Shinobu announces the information of the 4 Akatsuki to the ninja world, it will be difficult for them to move an inch in the ninja world. The other 3 are actually okay. Deidara can fly, Sasori is a puppet master, and Kakuzu is also a ninjutsu-type ninja. Even if the whole ninja world knows their information, it will be difficult for ordinary ninja to deal with them. But Haiden only knows taijutsu and curse. If the curse fails, 2 jonins are enough to deal with Haiden. Maybe he will be kicked out of the organizations for no use value, and then be killed by the organizations. Seeing that Kakuzu has helped Deidara to suture the wound, Sasori said lightly, "Her strength has decreased, she should have removed some kind of technique that can increase her strength. Judging from the battle just now, it will take time for her to activate this technique, but the specific information is not known." Kakuzu walked to Sasori and said in a cold tone, "I felt that her chakra was not right before. It seems that we must end the battle as soon as possible." Gudon. Hinata swallowed his saliva, and his small face was a little nervous. "That," Sasori was more gentlemanly, looking at Hinata slowly asked, "Do you have anything else to say?" "Yes." Hinata nodded frantically and asked again and again, "That, do you have a girlfriend? What kind of girl do you like? Can you cook? How much savings do you have? Do you have a house and a car? How much is the monthly salary of organizations? What dreams and expectations do you have for the future? Have you ever thought about becoming the leader of organizations?" For clones of the Grudge of Earth with masks appeared behind Kakuzu's back. "She's stalling for time." "I know." Sasori's hands moved slightly and the iron sand condensed into sharp iron spikes as he lightly said, "She uses ninjutsu very fast." Kakuzu nodded. "Got it." Hinata lowered his head and was silent for a moment. Then he suddenly raised his head and said loudly, "Please wait a little longer." Sasori and Kaku's movements slowed down. Sasori asked softly, "Any last words?" "Yes." Hinata nodded vigorously. "The last thing I want to say is, I'm running." As soon as he finished speaking, Hinata quickly jumped back, turned around, and fled madly into the distance. Without Deidara's air advantage, how could a puppet master and a ninjutsu-type ninja catch up with Hinata? A taijutsu-type ninja? Although Haiden is also a taijutsu-type ninja, he probably hasn't adapted to his new limbs yet. If you can't win, run. There's nothing wrong with that. This is called strategic retreat. Sasori, Kakuzu, and Haiden. Hinata has always given people the impression that he is the type of person who uses big moves recklessly. They didn't expect Hinata to run away. Sasori, Kakuzu, and Haiden quickly chased after Hinata. Although the distance between them wasn't pulled apart, it was extremely difficult to catch up with Hinata. "Ha!" Hinata breathed a sigh of relief. He was so nervous that he even forgot the truth of, if you can't win, run. If he knew, he would have run earlier. Deidara shouldn't be dead yet. Hinata plans to go back and kill Deidara after entering Sage mode. Deidara is too vengeful. After being hit by Itachi Uchiha's genjutsu, he didn't forget this hatred until he died, and he even put this hatred on Sasuke. Since Hinata has offended Deidara, he must not let him go. The Hyuga clan is not like the Uchiha clan, which only has 2 or 3 kittens. If Deidara doesn't die, once he meets the ninjas of the Hyuga clan in the future, he will definitely be ruthless. Very fast, Sasori hesitated and looked at Kakuzu and asked, "Do you still want to chase?" Sasori can't judge how long it will take for Hinata to launch his jutsu. Once Hinata returns to his previous state, there will be a big battle between the 2 sides. It was actually okay before. Hinata couldn't fly at that time. But Hinata can fly now. Once Hinata takes advantage of the air, the Akatsuki trio can only stand and take a beating. Kakuzu was puzzled. "What's wrong?" Sasori said lightly, "She is also a flying ninja. Once she launches that jutsu, whether she runs away or turns around to fight with us, we will be in a passive position. She is delaying the time. There is no need to continue to chase." After a pause, Sasori continued, "But in the end, she still has to meet up with Kakashi and the others. After they meet up, she won't be able to run anymore." Kakuzu stopped, and Sasori and Haiden also stopped at the same time. Since she is a flying ninja, there is no need to continue to chase. Even if the Akatsuki trio can gain the upper hand, Hinata can leave from the air at any time. Kakuzu pondered for a moment and said, "Let's go back, take Deidara and retreat first." Ha! Hinata stopped and looked back with some doubts in his heart. "Why don't you chase? Is she going to run away?" Hinata turned around and followed Akatsuki's group from a distance. Others can be temporarily let go, but Deidara can't. This person is too vengeful. People who hold grudges are the most hateful. Hinata has a deep understanding of this. She is following. Sasori looked back and said lightly, "It seems that my analysis is right. She does need some time to prepare to launch that jutsu." Duh. Stopping suddenly, Kakuzu said lightly, "I will hold her." Sasori and Haiden didn't speak. Kakuzu, who is proficient in earth release, is indeed the most suitable to hold Hinata. Hinata galloped all the way, and the distance between him and Kakuzu was constantly shortened. "It's too late," Hinata shouted. Chakra on his back instantly condensed into the form of wings, and chakra under his feet shot out, and he quickly flew into the sky. Passing by Kakuzu in the air, Hinata quickly flew in the direction of Deidara. Hinata calculated chakra, and chakra under his feet kept shooting out, increasing his flying speed to the extreme, and in just a few seconds he overtook Sasori and Haiden, and arrived at Deidara's location first. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.